Confronting her cold husband, Violetta questions if Marquis Ernest Wolfs truly has no intention of bearing a child with her. Without a trace of hesitation, the Marquis bluntly confirms her worst suspicions. Reflecting on their political union born of wealth and lineage, Violetta winces as the Ice Mark cruelly dismisses her as a shameless woman incapable of being loved. Stung by his intense disdain, she quickly pivots to make a single, decisive demand of her own. Staring her down, Ernest curtly permits her to state her terms. Staring back with equal resolve, she boldly demands absolute freedom during her stay at his estate. Unbothered by her audacity, the Marquis indifferently agrees to the arrangement. He casually grants her permission to take as many lovers as she desires, further sealing their emotional detachment. Instead of feeling insulted, Violetta secretly rejoices at this miraculous salvation. 18-year-old Violetta Rains acknowledges her toxic reputation, fully aware the world brands her as the infamous poisonous woman. She laments that her husband believed the vicious rumors painting her as a shameless villainess who recklessly chases men and nightlife. In reality, she has lived a quiet life on her father's estate, entirely absorbed in the study and practice of agriculture. The scandalous rumors actually belonged to her younger sister Lucia, who deceitfully used Violetta's name while indulging in high society debauchery. Viewing the rejected wedding night as a thrilling blessing in disguise, she eagerly shifts her focus to the future. Realizing the impoverished Northern Territory offers vast, unmonitored land, she excitedly plots to claim it for her own ambitions. Driven by an insatiable passion for agriculture, she resolves to transform the struggling lands into a bountiful paradise. She wholeheartedly embraces this unexpected opportunity to freely farm to her heart's content. The driving force behind her agricultural obsession stems from a shocking revelation. Violetta is a reincarnated woman who awakened to her past at age 10. A decade ago, 10-year-old Violetta joyfully admired a beautiful, blooming rose in the estate gardens. Spotting something peculiar, the young girl eagerly turned to show the flower to her mother. To her absolute horror, a menacing bug rested right atop the delicate petals. Shrieking in terror, she stumbled backward and took a nasty tumble. Striking her head violently against the ground, the blunt force suddenly unlocked her suppressed memories of a past life as a Japanese woman. Hazy, distant visions of tall green rice shoots standing in flooded fields instantly flooded her newly awakened mind. She vividly remembered how the vibrant crops shimmered brilliantly whenever a gentle wind swept across the water. Aside from those beautiful fields, the rest of her former life remained a blurry void, devoid of names or personal details. She assumed her 10 years living as the noble Violetta had simply overwritten the fading traces of her original identity. However, the mouth-watering taste and texture of cooked rice remained sharply etched into her consciousness. Driven by intense nostalgia, she desperately craved the warmth and sweetness of freshly made rice balls. Dismay quickly set in as she realized that rice was entirely unheard of in this wheat-dominated medieval world. Refusing to surrender to despair, she vowed to find rice just as a concerned maid noticed she had regained consciousness. Brimming with a fiery new purpose, she leaped out of bed, refusing to waste another second. She urgently decided to seek out her mother, hoping for any clues about her beloved grain. The frantic maid begged her to rest, but the energized girl boldly bolted past her. Brushing off the maid's desperate protests, she sprinted down the halls with the singular hope that her mother knew about rice. Bursting into the room, she quickly reassured her startled mother that she was perfectly fine. Wasting no time on pleasantries, she immediately asked her mother if she knew anything about rice cultivation. She excitedly described the mysterious crop as a wheat-like grain that thrives in shallow, flooded fields. Her mother could only repeat the strange, foreign terms in utter bewilderment. Panicking slightly over her slip-up, Violetta quickly lied that she had read about the complex agricultural concepts in a book to hide her reincarnated origins. Deciding that her reincarnated memories are entirely too difficult to explain, Violetta firmly resolves to keep her past life a strict secret. Assuming she simply learned these complex agricultural terms from a book, her mother affectionately praises Violetta's cleverness. Despite the praise secretly stemming from her hidden past life, Violetta's heart swells with genuine happiness at her mother's warm words. Violetta questions her mother's bizarre habit of constantly eating cake, but the frail woman playfully insists it acts as an important medicine. Realizing the severe danger of such a profoundly unhealthy diet, Violetta internally panics over her mother eating nothing but sweets. Confined mostly to her bed, the sickly mother completely avoids meat, fish, and vegetables, tragically never dining with her own family. Refusing to let this tragic decline continue, an enthusiastic Violetta urgently invites her mother for a refreshing walk in the garden. Easily charmed by her incredibly sweet daughter, the weary mother smiles softly and agrees to a short stroll outside. Knowing that light exercise is absolutely crucial for recovering health, Violetta happily guides her frail mother into the bright sunshine. Beaming with excitement, Violetta enthusiastically leads her mother forward to show her a very specific and beautiful flower. To their absolute surprise, the pair suddenly bumps into Violetta's older brother, Oscar, roaming through the lush garden foliage. Startled to see his sickly mother walking outdoors, Oscar calmly explains that he is busy observing insects and plants. Highly trusted as the next count, the athletic and intelligent Oscar perfectly mirrors their mother's features and fearlessly handles terrifying bugs. Smiling warmly at his intense academic dedication, their mother affectionately praises Oscar for being such a diligent young boy. Noticing that her hardworking son is thirsty, the mother warmly invites Oscar to join them for a much-needed rest. Seeking immediate refreshment, the smiling mother politely orders the servant James to prepare some hot tea for the family. Watching this wholesome interaction unfold, Violetta rejoices at the truly wonderful sight of her mother looking so incredibly lively. Taking a monumental step toward recovery, the mother instructs James to prepare her a meal so she can finally dine with her beloved children. By the time autumn arrives 3 months later, the daily garden walks successfully transform her mother's frail body into a much stronger state. With her mother finally recovering, a determined Violetta dives into the mansion's vast library to frantically study agriculture and search for any mention of rice. Consulting her deeply supportive brother, Violetta excitedly learns that rice occasionally arrives as a rare, highly expensive trade good from the south. Refusing to let potential climate issues stop her, Violetta realizes she urgently needs vast sums of money to acquire precious seed rice. Thrilled by the limitless possibilities stretching before her, the young girl passionately embraces her bold new agricultural dreams. Fired up and overflowing with newfound resolve, Violetta vows to give this massive farming endeavor her absolute all. A servant urgently announces the Count's arrival, prompting a cheerful Violetta to excitedly welcome her traveling father home. Smiling proudly at his precious angels, her father presents a large pile of exotic souvenirs and urges his daughters to choose whatever they desire. Returning frequently from his overseas inspection trips, the eccentric Count constantly scatters bizarre foreign crafts all across their noble mansion. Staring cautiously at the deeply odd assortment, Lucia gingerly selects a peculiar, delicate item from the strange pile. Beaming with intense fatherly pride, the Count happily praises Lucia's exceptional eye as she confidently claims her chosen gift. Blessed with shining golden hair and vivid violet eyes, the beautiful Lucia perfectly mirrors the fragile, delicate charm of their beloved mother. Turning his eager attention to his other daughter, the smiling Count enthusiastically asks Violetta to make her own selection. Scanning the truly bizarre assortment of foreign objects, an unsure Violetta wonders which strange souvenir to ultimately pick. Her eyes widen in absolute, paralyzing shock as she suddenly spots something that unmistakably resembles her deeply coveted rice. Instantly recognizing the rough texture and faint sweet scent, she stares intently at the incredibly precious foreign plant. Despite her father casually warning that it is merely a bouquet of rare plants, an unflinching Violetta firmly selects the bundled stalks. Overjoyed by this absolute miracle, she tightly clutches the plant and loudly declares that she wants absolutely nothing else in the world. Seeing her sister's explosive excitement, Lucia suddenly bursts into a massive, wailing tantrum while demanding the exact same bouquet. Violetta freezes in total, helpless disbelief as her younger sister's loud, piercing cries suddenly shatter the joyful room. Pointing a desperate finger at the bundled stalks, a tearful Lucia screams at the top of her lungs that she wants Violetta's chosen item. As their utterly panicked parents rush to comfort the crying girl, Violetta watches in horror as her precious rice suddenly slips into severe jeopardy. The tense standoff between the sisters momentarily pauses as everyone processes the dramatic and sudden outburst. Gently intervening, their weary mother urges Violetta to surrender the mysterious item to a crying Lucia. Pleading softly with her eldest daughter, she insists it cannot be helped since her little sister is sobbing so pitifully. Resigned to this deeply familiar routine, Violetta remembers all the countless times she willingly gave up her favorite things without any malice. Panicking internally, she furiously realizes that this golden bouquet is the one profound treasure she absolutely cannot surrender. Stepping forward decisively, her brave brother Oscar argues that since Lucia already chose her doll, Violetta should keep her prized plant. Offering a fair and generous compromise, he kindly promises to give his crying sister one of his own items instead. Caught completely off guard, a tearful Lucia stares blankly at her brother's unexpected and sudden proposal. Snatching the new deal, a pacified Lucia haughtily dismisses the weird flower and gladly leaves it to her older sister. Delighted by the shiny alternative, the young girl happily claims a stunning blue jewel that suits her perfectly. Recognizing her quiet desperation, Oscar flashes a knowing smile as Violetta gratefully thanks him for his timely intervention. Clutching her prize with a wildly pounding heart, she fiercely celebrates her incredible luck at finally securing the precious rice. Overflowing with immense gratitude, she softly thanks her supportive brother while he calmly examines the remaining souvenirs. Determined to repay his profound kindness, she silently vows to let him taste the delicious crop once she successfully cultivates it. When the perfect planting season finally arrives, she immediately begins her agricultural work using deep knowledge from her past life. Anticipating potential failure, the 11-year-old carefully extracts the golden grains and safely soaks them in a shallow pot of water. Overwhelmed by the profound mystery of life, she rejoices wildly when tiny, fragile sprouts finally emerge from the submerged seeds. Fresh, life-giving water splashes gently over the thriving, vibrant little seedlings as they continue to slowly grow. Realizing the tiny sprouts are finally ready, she excitedly prepares to transfer her precious plants directly into the rich, wet soil. Kneeling enthusiastically in the dirt, she is suddenly interrupted when her curious brother approaches to see what she is doing. Proudly showing off her hard work, she happily explains that she is carefully spreading the soil to craft a proper rice seedbed. Startled by his sudden teasing about bugs, she fiercely defends her absolute resolve to overcome any terrifying obstacle for her crops. Acting swiftly, she safely covers the fragile sprouts with a thick protective cloth so hungry birds cannot swoop down and eat them. Vigilantly guarding her tiny flooded field, she ensures the water never dries up as the delicate seedlings slowly grow stronger each day. When blazing summer arrives, the thriving rice produces small white flowers before hardening into heavy, beautiful golden ears. Gazing at her fully grown crop, she tears up as her wild experimental tin bucket rice cultivation ultimately succeeds. Wielding a sharp sickle, she quickly harvests the bundles, hangs them to dry, and threshes the grains free with an old comb. Staring intensely at the massive pile of harvested grain, she prepares for the grueling physical task of removing the tough outer husks. Using all her youthful strength, she grinds the stubborn grains down repeatedly to break apart their thick protective shells. Blowing gently into her cupped hands, she carefully separates the heavy, edible rice from the empty, weightless husks. Refusing to yield to physical exhaustion, she vigorously pounds the rice inside a jar with a wooden stick to polish away the bran. Wiping slick sweat from her tired brow, she decides her intense and exhausting manual labor is finally finished for the day. Peering eagerly into the heavy jar, she excitedly inspects the beautiful, shining results of her draining agricultural efforts. A stunning pile of perfectly polished, snow-white rice gleams brilliantly back at her in the soft afternoon light. Struck by a sudden, intense pang of hunger, she dramatically realizes she hasn't eaten a single thing since the early morning. Unable to wait another agonizing second, she excitedly scoops up her precious harvest and scrambles straight toward the bustling kitchen. Bursting suddenly through the kitchen doors, she urgently asks the bewildered culinary staff if she can borrow their workspace for a moment. Holding out her precious bowl of polished rice, she eagerly asks a nearby servant to help her cook the mysterious new ingredient. Staring in utter, paralyzing confusion, the shocked servant heavily questions the young noble lady's bizarre and sudden culinary request. Taking strict charge to keep her safe from the dangerous stove, the helpful servant happily agrees to transform the unknown grains into a warm porridge. Boiling water bubbled vigorously inside the heavy iron pot as the highly anticipated meal cooked over the hot stove. Carefully stirring the thick mixture, the diligent servant ensured the delicate contents cooked evenly. Presenting the freshly cooked meal, the polite servant proudly announced to Lady Violetta that her special dish was finally ready. Arriving with perfect timing, Oscar happily noted the dish was finished as an excited Violetta deeply inhaled the wonderful aroma. Brimming with intense anticipation, Violetta eagerly scooped up a steaming spoonful to properly taste her hard-earned creation. Chewing the odd mixture, an unimpressed Oscar complained that the strange porridge was entirely flavorless, sticky, and hard in the middle. Furious at his blunt critique, Violetta angrily ordered him to stop eating, prompting a smirking Oscar to playfully ask for another bite. Cradling the warm bowl, a deeply moved Violetta realized the gentle, comforting scent perfectly mirrored her beloved memories of vast rice fields. Tears of absolute joy streamed down her face as she finally savored the unbelievably delicious taste of her precious harvest. Smiling warmly at her profound happiness, Oscar kindly expressed his relief while the dutiful servant bowed in genuine satisfaction. Successfully completing her very first agricultural cycle, this single momentous bowl of rice porridge brilliantly unlocked the bright path to Violetta's entire future. Gazing affectionately at her polished rice, Violetta passionately vows to grow even more of the beautiful grains. She vividly envisions the magnificent sight of her precious golden crops spreading endlessly across a massive flooded field. Pondering logistical constraints, she seriously wonders if constructing a functional rice paddy in her royal capital garden is actually feasible. She quickly discards the ambitious garden idea upon realizing that a proper paddy demands tremendous amounts of water and land. A sudden spark of inspiration strikes as she calculates that riding a black steel crow could slash her travel time to a mere 8 hours. Since carriages take 3 grueling days to arrive, she determines that the family's distant northern territory is her only viable agricultural option. The noble Rains family commands a unique ancestral ability to communicate with and ride giant magical birds through the open skies. Trembling with deep-seated anxiety, the young noblewoman admits to intensely avoiding the terrifying avian trial because she has never flown before. Fueled entirely by her burning agricultural passion, a determined Violetta firmly decides it is finally time to face her deepest fear. Steeling her fractured resolve, she aggressively pumps her fists and prepares to tackle the daunting beast-taming challenge head-on. Clenching her hands tightly together, the determined girl channels her inner courage to master the terrifying flying creature. She fiercely vows to shatter any terrifying obstacle in her immediate path for the glorious, world-changing sake of cultivating rice. Disgust instantly replaces her fiery resolve as she recoils in absolute horror at the prospect of digging up nasty dirt worms for bird feed. Whining pitifully while hunting for squirming bait, she bitterly regrets avoiding the dreaded crow trial during her cowardly younger years. In a vivid flashback, her towering father cheerfully encourages a younger Violetta to finally meet her designated black steel crow. As her father explains that riding the beast is a mandatory Rains family trial, a nervous Violetta dreads encountering a scary monster. Pointing enthusiastically toward the open enclosure, the Count instructs the hesitant girl to shower her designated bird with endless love and care. The massive black steel crow playfully chirps while leaning forward to inspect its deeply terrified new master. The giant avian tilts its sleek head inquisitively as it patiently awaits a command from the trembling noble girl. Her intense fear instantly evaporates upon realizing the dreaded shadow beast is actually an incredibly fluffy and adorable giant bird. Her father gently assures the stunned girl that the sweet bird will not bite and promises they will bond quickly. Smiling down at his awestruck daughter, the Count warmly encourages Violetta to bestow a proper name upon her feathery new companion. Caught completely off guard by the sudden request, the flustered girl frantically racks her brain for a fitting moniker. Suddenly struck by a bright spark of inspiration, she excitedly announces that she has conjured the absolute perfect name for the dark bird. Pointing decisively at the giant creature, she happily dubs the magnificent black steel crow, Kuro. Returning to the present day, a deeply apologetic Violetta respectfully begs Kuro to forgive her for neglecting him for 2 entire years. Staring up at the towering avian, she sincerely hopes they can finally forge a powerful, lasting friendship moving forward. Revealing a messy handful of squirming dirt worms, she nervously offers the disgusting treats as a humble token of her genuine goodwill. Trembling slightly under his intense gaze, she politely asks the giant bird if he will accept her gross but well-meaning offering. The massive crow eagerly devours the squirming worms in a single swift bite, bringing a massive wave of relief to the anxious girl. Clutching her chest in dramatic relief, she profoundly thanks the heavens that the terrifying feeding ordeal ended peacefully. Reaching out with newfound confidence, Violetta passionately invites Kuro to explore the boundless skies and discover delicious treasures together. Staring deeply into his dark eyes, she earnestly asks the magnificent bird to officially become her very own wings. Flashing back to their first meeting, a younger Violetta eagerly asks her father for permission to physically pet the giant crow. Her father softly grants her request, assuring the eager girl that the fluffy creature will surely rejoice at her gentle touch. Snapping abruptly back to reality, A startled Violetta flinches violently as her older brother Oscar suddenly interrupts her private bonding session. Oscar casually admits he suspected her of plotting something suspicious, prompting a deeply offended Violetta to loudly deny his teasing accusations. Striking a dramatic pose, she boldly declares the commencement of her secret operation to master flying and shock their unaware parents. Thoroughly confused by her sudden bravery, Oscar demands to know why she suddenly wants to ride the terrifying bird, only for her to instantly scream about cultivating rice. Sighing heavily at her predictable obsession, the sharp-witted Oscar deduces that his sister urgently needs a specific favor from him. Bowing respectfully with a bright smile, Violetta dramatically begs her great brother to teach her how to fly, effectively forcing the defeated boy to agree. Advising Vio that the black steel crow is highly intelligent and can sense both fear and trust, her brother encourages her to treat it as a friend, to which she enthusiastically agrees to bond with Kuro. Curious about her brother's mount, Vio asks him to remind her of his black steel crow's name. Proudly boasting, the brother reveals his crow is named Black Thunder because it resembles a bolt of black lightning when diving from the sky. Agreeing that the name is incredibly cool, the brother shifts gears and suggests they finally try riding. Offering his support so she does not fall, he advises her to climb up slowly while she gratefully thanks him. Grunting with effort, Vio begins pulling herself up onto the massive bird's back. Settling securely into the saddle, she firmly grips the leather reins. Overwhelmed by the incredible sensation, Vio gasps in absolute amazement. Gazing down from the towering creature, she marvels at how the vast, high view makes their surroundings look like an entirely different world. Shocked by her natural poise, her brother stares in disbelief at how easily she is handling the mount. Assuming Kuro is simply acting like a gentleman, the brother accepts the situation to ensure she does not get hurt. Abruptly changing the plan, he announces they will skip flying and focus only on practicing running on the ground today. He explains that flying with a rider is physically demanding, so they must progress one step at a time. Bracing herself with determination, Vio commands Kuro to initiate the run. As the crow suddenly jolts into motion, her brother loudly orders her to relax and feel the animal's movements. Thrilled but completely startled, Vio cannot believe how incredibly fast the giant bird sprints. Feeling the wonderful wind rushing past her face, she notes that even running on the ground feels exactly like flying. Overwhelmed as the speed escalates uncontrollably, she desperately screams for Kuro to stop. Panicking at the dangerous velocity, her brother and a nearby attendant desperately shout for her to wait. Realizing the immediate peril, Vio frantically braces herself as the ride spirals out of control. Having safely come to a halt, a trembling Vio thanks her worried brother as he urgently checks on her condition. Praising her undeniable talent, he declares she rode wonderfully and has truly proven herself as part of the Raven's family. Teasing her about shedding tears, which she defensively denies, he concludes the day's training and tells her to dismount slowly. Attempting to stand, Vio collapses slightly as she realizes her exhausted legs are violently shaking. Chuckling at her state, her brother explains that the trembling comes from using unfamiliar muscles and should be worn proudly as a badge of honor. Gesturing gently, he encourages her to come along and rest. Reminding her there is no need to rush her progress, he affectionately offers to carry her back to her room just this once. Smiling with warm gratitude, Vio accepts his kind gesture and thanks her brother. Reflecting on the intense session, she acknowledges she only managed running today but fiercely vows to improve. She dreams of one day flying freely through the sky across the kingdom and embarking on grand adventures. Gazing forward with hope, she resolves to achieve all of these dreams together with Kuro. Cheering each other on, the determined duo enthusiastically commits to mastering the skies. Despite continuing her rigorous riding training, clumsy falls and painful tumbles remain a frequent occurrence. Through the ongoing struggles of Kuro's stubbornness and her own inexperience, the pair slowly but surely begins to improve together. Sometime later, a determined Vio formally interrupts her father in his private study. Bowing respectfully, she politely asks if he can spare a moment of his time for her. Affectionately calling her his angel, her father playfully notes that she looks dressed for a picnic in the sky. Pleading earnestly, Vio requests permission to start farming to enrich their lands and to commute between the territory and the capital using her black steel crow. Surprised by this sudden ambition, her father questions the idea since she still cannot properly ride her crow. Meeting his skeptical gaze, Vio confidently prepares her logical counterargument. Acknowledging his valid concern, she boldly declares that if she can master riding Kuro, there will no longer be any problem. Concerned about potential injuries, Vaio's father listens as she confidently demands a test to prove her mastery over the black steel crow. Intervening smoothly, her brother advises their father to watch from the sidelines because she will only yield upon realizing her own limits. Reluctantly agreeing, her skeptical father warns that she cannot even sit on the saddle without first bonding with the mysterious creature. Resigning himself to her relentless stubbornness, her father finally grants her formal permission to try the dangerous feat. Beaming with fierce determination, Vaio excitedly thanks her father for the long-awaited opportunity. Preparing for the ultimate challenge, she boldly declares it is time to show everyone the true results of her intense training. Shocked by her sudden proficiency, her stunned father wonders aloud when she actually learned to handle the massive beast. Gripping the thick leather reins tightly, Vaio fearlessly commands Kuro to take off into the sprawling sky. Launching with explosive power, the giant black steel crow propels itself forward to begin their rapid vertical ascent. Stunned by the breathtaking display, her father and brother watch wide-eyed as the magnificent bird violently takes flight. Soaring effortlessly through the turbulent air, Kuro carries Vaio high above the dusty training grounds. Gliding gracefully across the open sky, the pair perfectly demonstrates their strong bond and newfound aerial mastery. Catching the fast wind beneath its massive wings, the dark crow elegantly maneuvers through the bright atmosphere. Flapping powerfully against the heavy drafts, Kuro begins its smooth and controlled descent back toward the earth. Touching down flawlessly on the dirt, the magnificent bird lands gently before the completely awestruck onlookers. Amazed by her undeniable physical strength, her proud father admits he still thought of his angelic daughter as a mere child. Conceding total defeat, he happily promises to keep his word and unconditionally allows her to do as she wishes. Thrilled by his overwhelming approval, Vaio joyfully celebrates their hard-earned victory alongside her loyal Kuro. Several quiet days swiftly pass following her incredibly successful and dramatic flight test. Arriving at the lush Raven's territory domain, an excited Vaio finally spots the Grand Lord's mansion looming in the distance. Greeting her with the utmost respect, the loyal estate staff warmly welcomes Lady Violetta upon her long-awaited arrival. Rushing forward with boundless youthful joy, Vaio excitedly reunites with her deeply beloved grandmother. Embracing her affectionately, her beaming grandmother expresses immense happiness that Vaio has finally come to visit. Smiling brightly in return, Vaio warmly returns the tight embrace and happily greets her older relative. Curious about her granddaughter's plans, her grandmother asks about her next project, prompting Vaio to announce she will study agriculture and grow rice. Showing off a small pouch of raw rice seeds, Vaio explains her grand vision while her grandmother listens with genuine excitement. Asking about the specific land near the main water source, Vaio follows her grandmother who perfectly remembers the ideal location. Marveling at the expansive and beautiful plot, a stunned Vaio quickly double-checks if she can truly commandeer this amazing space. Assuring her that plenty of eager workers are available, her grandmother tells her to cast aside all worries, earning Vaio's profound gratitude. Aided by strong soldiers, they swiftly level the rough land and draw vital water from the canal to formally initiate rice cultivation. Endlessly mixing thick soil and water, the dedicated agricultural team flattens the paddies and carefully plants the precious green seedlings. Standing triumphantly before the flooded fields, Vaio proudly surveys the impressive results of their intense manual labor. Overcome with fierce nostalgia, she joyfully recognizes the beautiful mirrored rice paddies exactly as she remembers them. Ignited with passionate ambition, she boldly declares her steadfast intention to spread this revolutionary crop across the entire country. Pausing her immediate excitement, she quickly realizes that introducing a brand new staple food to the masses will face heavy friction. Acknowledging that the country's main staple is wheat and that she also fiercely loves bread and pasta, she accepts the coming agricultural resistance. Desiring everyone to eat their favorite foods, she decides to keep growing rice as a hobby while prioritizing increasing the vital wheat harvest. Shaking off her sudden lingering doubts, a determined Vaio aggressively hypes herself up for the challenging work lying ahead. Deciding that overthinking solves absolutely nothing, she confidently takes to the sky because fast flying is always the best remedy. Enjoying the wonderfully nice wind, she relaxes as the exhilarating airborne flight completely clears her head and sharpens her brilliant focus. Analyzing the vast Raven's territory, Vaio calculates that its warm climate holds immense potential for explosive agricultural yields and highly profitable surplus sales. Realizing the tremendous long-term benefits, she envisions offering free aid during severe famines to exponentially boost the raven's family's wealth and noble reputation. Gazing thoughtfully at her majestic mount, Vio playfully asks Kuro if there is a secret method to drastically multiply their critical wheat harvest. Flapping its massive black wings, the giant bird gracefully touches down on the grassy plains so the pair can finally take a well-deserved break. Dismounting smoothly from the saddle, Vio warmly praises Kuro for its hard work and suggests they rest and recover their strength for a while. Pondering deeply in the quiet field, the ambitious young noble fiercely racks her brain for a simple yet revolutionary way to maximize their agricultural output. Shattering the peaceful atmosphere, Kuro suddenly violently flaps its wings and lets out a piercing, thunderous caw. Startled by the abrupt and deafening noise, Vio jolts in surprise and loudly scolds her feathered companion for scaring her. Spotting a peculiar cluster of leaves on the ground, her boundless curiosity instantly piques as she leans in closely to investigate the mysterious plant. Recognizing the small green flora, she excitedly identifies it as wrench, a specific type of clover traditionally grown to let exhausted rice fields rest. Plucking the vibrant greenery from the dirt, Vio eagerly sifts through the dense clover patch in desperate hopes of finding a lucky four-leaf mutation. Humming with cheerful satisfaction, she victoriously plucks a perfect four-leaf clover from the soil and holds it proudly up to the light. Staring intently at the tiny cross-shaped leaves, a sudden spark of brilliant, world-changing inspiration visibly flashes across her highly focused face. Analyzing the neatly separated wheat fields and grasslands, she deduces that constantly growing the exact same crop slowly drains the soil of its lifeblood. Grasping the core agricultural concept, Vio realizes that finding a significantly more efficient way to restore the land's strength will inevitably skyrocket their productivity. Struck by a revolutionary epiphany, she urgently commands Kuro to take flight so they can rush back home immediately to share the idea. Soaring rapidly through the roaring sky, the determined rider completely immerses herself in unraveling her groundbreaking new agricultural theories. Connecting the scientific dots, Vio confirms that repeatedly planting identical crops drains vital nutrients and triggers a devastating condition known as continuous cropping disorder. Comparing diverse farming methods, she notes that flooding rice paddies drastically alters the microscopic soil environment and effectively prevents this widespread crop disease. Concluding that resilient rice is completely unbeatable, she decides she simply needs to synthetically alter the soil environment of the vulnerable wheat fields. Formulating a brilliant master strategy, Vio decides to systematically divide the farmland into 4 distinct rotational sections modeled directly after her lucky four-leaf clover. Finalizing the critical details of her plan, she confidently declares her revolutionary 4-field rotation system to be an absolutely perfect solution. Bursting with unstoppable momentum, she boldly rushes to seek formal permission from her grandmother so she can put this ambitious plan into immediate action. Approaching the heavy doors of the acting lord's chamber, she abruptly pauses upon hearing unexpected, familiar voices echoing from inside the room. Pushing the grand door open, she is instantly greeted by the surprising sight of her older brother waiting inside. Shocked by his sudden appearance, she listens intently as her brother explains he came to fetch her because their mother was heavily worried about her prolonged absence. Teasingly adding to his explanation, he jokes with a wry smile that he also came to verify if she was secretly causing trouble for their grandmother. Defending herself against his playful accusations, Vio stammers defensively as they briefly discuss the upcoming school year and their mother's steadily improving health. Seizing the perfect conversational opening, a thrilled Vio loudly announces her grand, game-changing master plan for systemic crop rotation. Trembling with pure excitement, she confidently guarantees her stunned family that this revolutionary method will massively increase their overall territorial harvest. Presenting her detailed diagrams to her skeptical but highly intrigued relatives, she passionately outlines the intricate logistics of her entire 4-field rotation strategy. Impressed by the undeniable and airtight logic, her older brother genuinely questions if she actually engineered this brilliant concept entirely by herself. Panicking internally since she cannot safely reveal her past life knowledge, Vio awkwardly lies and claims the genius idea just miraculously burst forth from her mind. Pushing aggressively past his reasonable doubts, she passionately argues that achieving success will make the entire Raven's territory unbelievably and permanently prosperous. Carefully weighing the potential risks against the massive rewards, she humbly requests permission to safely test her rotation method on a small patch of fallow land first. Turning her hopeful, desperate gaze toward her grandmother, Vio politely begs the acting lord for the official authorization needed to commence the vital experiment. Smiling with deep, unwavering affection, her powerful grandmother gracefully grants the young noble full permission to do exactly as she sees fit. Overjoyed by the tremendous display of support, Vio bows in deep gratitude and fiercely vows to make the agricultural experiment a resounding, historic success. Clenching her fists with fiery determination, the young noble eagerly prepares to completely revolutionize her family's entire farming industry from the ground up. Transitioning through 3 long years of grueling agricultural trials, Vio's unwavering dedication finally begins to spectacularly reshape the sprawling landscape of the Ravens' territory. 3 years later, the Ravens' territory has undergone remarkable development as the wheat harvest massively increased and meals became richer with potatoes and turnips. Feeding the livestock with nutritious vegetables and clover resulted in healthier farm horses and allowed for the highly profitable production of rich, sweet cheese from improved milk. Drawn by the sweet scent of blooming white clover fields, countless bees flooded the area, delivering yet another miraculous agricultural blessing to the thriving land. Overwhelmed by brilliant new ideas, Vio excitedly realizes she could start beekeeping and immediately decides to name the upcoming product after the lucky 4-leaf clover. Wasting no time, she launches her ambitious beekeeping project to harvest abundant, high-quality clover honey throughout the Rains territory. Shifting her intense focus to commercialization, Vio plans to aggressively consult her mother's expert pâtissier to refine her next big culinary invention. Forged through the miraculous combination of golden honey and luxurious cheese, the newly developed Happy Clover Honey Cheesecake swiftly enters rapid commercialization. Back in the bustling kitchen, the dedicated chefs of the Rains territory continuously reproduce the recipe and execute rigorous trial runs to perfect the decadent dessert. Bursting into the room with boundless enthusiasm, Vio presents the newly crafted cheesecake and eagerly begs her grandmother to taste the delicious prototype. Delighted by the wonderful surprise, her grandmother warmly agrees to save the decadent treat for their upcoming tea time. Praising her granddaughter's incredible agricultural achievements, the elder affectionately compares Vio to a legendary green saintess, prompting Vio to question the mysterious title. Her grandmother explains that the green saintess is a revered messenger of the harvest goddess who occasionally appears to revolutionize agriculture, famously spreading potatoes across the land. Realizing that the people already secretly call her the green saintess, Violetta admits the mysterious, divine title does not feel too bad. Theorizing about these holy messengers, Vio speculates that the goddess of harvest invites reincarnators from other worlds to develop the food simply because she loves gourmet delights. Convinced that past culinary pioneers were also reincarnators like herself who raised the world's food standards, Vio smiles at the fascinating historical connection. Hoping to truly earn that legendary title someday, Vio excuses herself to check on the thriving apiary before their scheduled tea time. Agreeing warmly, her grandmother playfully reminds the energetic young noble to wear her protective hat properly and stay safe out in the fields. Stepping outside into the bright sunlight, Vio suddenly spots something massive rapidly descending from the clear sky. Recognizing the distinct, powerful silhouette of Black Thunder, she realizes her older brother is unexpectedly returning home. Welcoming him back warmly, she smiles as her brother dismounts and casually thanks her for coming out to greet him. Thrilled to hear that their mother and Lucia specifically requested her cheesecake, Vio eagerly promises to gather the other prototypes for immediate tasting. Observing the vibrant fields from the sky, her brother notes that this year's harvest looks excellent, guaranteeing increased tax revenue and a highly delighted father. Interrupting her joy over their father's happiness, her brother critically suggests she start acting more like a proper young lady of her age. Reminding her she will attend the academy next year at 14, he urges her to wear dresses and jewelry, but Vio fiercely argues those get in the way of farm work and would only distract Kuro. Sighing at her relentless stubbornness, her brother unfavorably compares her to the beautiful Lucia, noting the latter will surely receive many excellent marriage proposals. Warning her to get engaged before suitors discover her eccentric true nature, he listens in shock as Vio fiercely vows to preemptively reject anyone who would abandon her real self. Exasperated by her wild independence, her brother demands to know what kind of impossible person she would even consider liking. Staring back with unyielding conviction, Vio bluntly declares she only wants someone who will unconditionally let her live freely. Dismissing his cynical doubt that such a convenient man exists, Vio defends her right to dream before casually bidding him farewell to check her beloved beehives. Urging her to rest later, he insists she take the massive Kuro along since the giant crow is a far stronger guardian than any standard escort. Arriving at the buzzing apiary, Vio happily observes that her dedicated bees are successfully gathering plenty of sweet nectar again today. Driven by boundless ambition, she silently vows to aggressively expand her honey production and establish new sales routes to solidify the Raven's territory's agricultural brand. Shattering her deep concentration, a sudden, distinct rustling sound violently echoes from the nearby foliage. Turning sharply toward the unexpected noise, Vio cautiously wonders who could possibly be visiting the secluded agricultural fields. Spotting an unfamiliar figure in the distance, a surprised attendant quickly confirms the immediate presence of an unexpected guest. Approaching the grand estate with undeniable confidence, a meticulously dressed woman makes her way across the sunlit grounds. Escorted by a nervous attendant, the elegant stranger smoothly glides toward Vio with an intimidating air of absolute authority. Waving her fan with dramatic flair, the imposing woman sharply commands a nearby worker to step forward immediately. Apologizing profusely with a haughty, aristocratic laugh, the confident newcomer formally announces her sudden arrival. Bowing with a sharp, calculating smile, she confidently introduces herself as Betty Magnolia of the highly influential Magnolia Trading Company. Bowing respectfully, Betty Magnolia humbly requests that her company be allowed to handle the territory's exceptionally high-quality honey. Startled by the sudden and monumental offer, Vio gasps in sheer surprise. Realizing her incredible luck, the young noble fiercely vows not to let this perfect trading opportunity slip by. Welcoming her guests warmly, Vio immediately offers them a taste of the freshly harvested honey. Gesturing gracefully, she confidently leads the intrigued merchants through the sprawling estate. Observing her glowing skin and the tamed black steel crow, the young attendant deduces she is a direct member of the powerful Raven's family. Overhearing his sharp deduction, Vio finds the merchants highly amusing but incredibly capable. Presenting her prized product, Vio proudly introduces the golden jar of Raven's territory's lucky clover honey. Inviting them to dive right in, she excitedly urges the merchants to scoop the rich honey directly with their fingers. Following her enthusiastic instruction, the stunned guests carefully taste the glowing golden syrup. Overwhelmed by the pure floral fragrance and deep sweetness, Betty declares the honey completely surpasses all rumors. Eager to secure the lucrative product, the veteran merchant urgently requests to discuss the business details immediately. Thrilled by her intense interest, Vio happily agrees and offers to guide them to a nearby manor for formal negotiations. Suggesting they all enjoy the new cake together for feedback, Vio excitedly leaves the actual business negotiations to her capable grandmother. Accepting the responsibility with a smile, her grandmother orders Vio to quickly change into proper formal clothes. Dressing in elegant formal wear, Vio knows that flawless etiquette is strictly required to prevent a promising deal from collapsing. Finished with her rapid preparations, the young noble hurries frantically down the quiet manor halls. Rounding a corner, she suddenly spots the merchant's young attendant standing completely alone. Noticing him glaring out the window with an angry expression, Vio wonders if the lost boy is secretly in pain. Approaching him gently, she curiously asks why he is hiding his face behind a cloth mask. When he defensively questions her interest, an eager Vio boldly declares she wants to be friends and remember his true face. Moved by her genuine sincerity, the boy slowly pulls down his protective face covering. Turning to face her fully, he cautiously reveals his heavily concealed features to the young noble. Staring intently, Vio marvels at his striking foreign appearance, noting his amber eyes, black hair, and sun-tanned skin. Completely mesmerized by his beautifully sculpted features, she immediately praises him for being so incredibly handsome. When he bitterly claims his foreign looks are better off hidden, Vio fiercely argues that covering up such striking features is an absolute waste. Explaining the brutal reality of commerce, she excitedly assures him that being instantly recognizable will give him a massive advantage as a merchant. Advising him on the immense power of presentation, she guarantees that refined manners and speech will easily win over even the strictest nobility. Urging him to polish himself into a top-class product, she gazes into his eyes and firmly declares her absolute belief in his ultimate success. Smiling with boundless ambition, Vio playfully demands that he must exclusively trade with her once he achieves greatness. Smirking with newfound confidence, the young merchant accepts her fiery challenge and promises to wait for her top-class goods. Introducing herself with a warm chuckle, Violetta Reigns finally asks the mysterious boy for his true name. Bowing with flawless grace, Dean of the Magnolia Trading Company formally introduces himself and eagerly anticipates their long relationship. Returning to the bustling reception room, Vio proudly presents the majestic Happy Clover honey cheesecake to her delighted guests. Awestruck by the gorgeous dessert, Betty marvels at its beautiful construction and deeply curious name. Explaining her creative naming process, Vio reveals that finding a rare four-leaf clover is traditionally said to bring great happiness. Beaming with fierce pride, she excitedly urges her esteemed guests to take a bite and experience that promised happiness for themselves. Opening her mouth in eager anticipation, the imposing Betty Magnolia carefully takes a bite of the glowing dessert. Chewing the delicate cheesecake, a sudden wave of overwhelming, decadent flavor completely takes the veteran merchant by surprise. Awestruck by the miraculous taste, Betty confesses that the dessert completely shatters all rumors and genuinely fills her soul with pure happiness. Smiling warmly at the phenomenal success, Vio's grandmother praises her flawless craftsmanship while noting how perfectly the treat pairs with tea. Recognizing a massive business opportunity, a highly motivated Betty passionately requests permission to help spread this incredible happiness to others. Impressed by the surprisingly quick decision, the grandmother listens as Betty fiercely quotes a merchant proverb about working swifter than the Gale Falcon. Reaching across the table with absolute confidence, the two powerful women engage in a firm, history-making handshake. Finalizing the monumental agreement, the highly lucrative commercial deal for the territory's elite honey is officially sealed without hesitation. Basking in the warm glow of her hard-earned victory, a thrilled Violetta smiles brightly toward the incredibly promising future. Gazing thoughtfully into the distance, the young visionary deeply appreciates the boundless opportunities now resting securely at her fingertips. Reflecting on her relentless agricultural journey, she softly marvels at how a simple clover sparked a massive economic revolution. Empowered by the trading company's vast logistics network, Raven's territory's premium honey and dairy products explosively spread across the entire nation. Raking in massive royalties as her honey cheesecake dominates the royal capital, Violetta's personal wealth skyrockets at an absolutely unbelievable pace. Forging an unbreakable, long-standing partnership with the Magnolia Trading Company, Vio smoothly closes out her phenomenal 14th year of life. Transitioning from a young business prodigy to an elite student, the brilliant noble finally arrives at the prestigious Royal Noble Academy. Standing confidently at the threshold of a brand new adventure, a now 15-year-old Violetta eagerly prepares to conquer her academic future. Time marches forward as the young noblewoman settles into the Royal Aristocratic Academy, an institution demanding strict attendance from those aged 13 and above. Riding in a carriage, she dreads the heavy 3-year academic journey ahead while her companion questions if the school is truly unenjoyable. Driven by a fierce passion for agriculture, the young lady desperately plots a way to secure an early graduation within a single year. Her hopes shatter instantly when her companion bluntly declares such an accelerated graduation completely impossible to approve. The companion ruthlessly points out that early graduation requires a sudden title inheritance or marriage, both of which the young woman currently lacks. Emphasizing the Academy's true purpose of building connections, her companion urges her to focus all efforts on securing a suitable marriage partner. Dodging the heavy marriage pressure, she dismisses the idea for now, prompting her companion to ask if she has made even one single friend. Claiming to have at least one friend to avoid further prying, she secretly admits her lack of romantic interest while her companion enthusiastically suggests inviting them over. A month into her enrollment, the young lady finds herself burdened as a delivery girl for upperclassmen handing over love letters meant for her older brother, Oscar. Eager students constantly swarm her with invitations for tea, transparently using the sister to bridge the gap to her highly popular brother. She bitterly realizes these fawning upperclassmen are merely opportunistic acquaintances rather than genuine friends. As a future count without a fiancé, Oscar naturally draws aggressive attention, even as his hungry sister notes their wildly inaccurate perceptions of him. The obsessed admirers romanticize Oscar's every move, declaring him the beautiful Lord of Radiance, who steals their hearts with his supposed melancholy. Confronting her brother directly, she demands to know if he has finally written replies to his legions of persistent admirers. Shocked into remembering, Oscar sheepishly admits he completely forgot about the letters but promises to handle them soon. Furious, she fiercely warns him that his ongoing silence will make the upperclassmen suspect she never delivered their precious letters in the first place. As Oscar defensively claims he is merely being cautious, she boldly pivots to interrogate him about his own search for a marriage partner. Ignoring her probing question, Oscar smoothly distracts her by pointing out a passing bird, confirming he has absolutely no intention of writing those replies anytime soon. She reflects on the heavy burden of his overwhelming good looks, which cause people to project deep, wistful thoughts onto his completely empty stares. Rejecting the dramatic lifestyle of her brother, the young noblewoman internally vows to fly under the radar and live in absolute peace. Shattering her peaceful thoughts, Oscar suddenly flips the interrogation and questions her opinion on His Highness the First Prince. Bursting into laughter, she instantly brushes off her brother's ridiculous inquiry as nothing more than a hilarious joke. Because the First Prince shares Oscar's exact age, ambitious nobles aggressively schemed to enroll their children simultaneously to secure valuable royal connections. This massive influx of scheming aristocrats aiming for the prince triggered severe over-enrollment, forcing many unfortunate students to delay their education. Humbly acknowledging her place, she admits she could never compete with the prince's famously breathtaking fiancée. The First Prince is already betrothed to Isekai'd, a duke's daughter renowned for her stunning beauty, academic brilliance, and unmatched grace. Oscar mercilessly roasts his sister, bluntly stating she could never measure up to Lady Isekai'd even if she stood on her head. Unbothered by his sharp words, she calmly accepts Oscar's jab as a simple, necessary reminder to stay grounded in reality. Despite their bantering, a darker realization looms over her as she identifies their ambitious father as the true source of trouble. During a tense breakfast, their father strategically and casually drops the First Prince's name into the conversation. It becomes painfully obvious that their father fully expects both his children to aggressively climb the social ladder and befriend the royal heir. Finding the entire situation utterly exhausting, she recognizes that neither she nor Oscar possess the necessary qualities to fulfill their father's grand royal ambitions. When Oscar asks if anyone in her grade catches her eye, she admits her only focus is surviving the strict wrath of Madame Camellia. Recognizing the instructor's fierce dedication to perfect etiquette, she quickly accuses her flashy brother of being a constant headache for Madame Camellia. Cornered by her highly accurate accusation, Oscar awkwardly laughs off the comment and desperately feigns complete ignorance. Anticipating the upcoming long vacation, Violetta dreams of returning to her territory to enjoy endless farming and a fantastic rice harvest. She eagerly visualizes the gorgeous sight of swaying green seedlings waiting for her back home. Meanwhile, at the academy, the female students find their studies heavily restricted to academics, home economics, and strict manners. Watching the male students enjoy plenty of vigorous night training, she burns with intense jealousy. Frustrated by her completely sedentary lifestyle, she bitterly realizes she will quickly fall out of shape at this rate. Suddenly, the Viscount's son, Felix Shadowmare, approaches and smoothly returns an item she had dropped. Having grown quite friendly as seatmates in history class, she graciously thanks him for his kindness. A quiet moment passes between them as they stand together in silence. Noticing an unusual hesitation in his demeanor, Violetta curiously asks if something is wrong. Felix surprises her by offering a coveted reservation to Meal Violette, leaving her wondering how he knew she loved it. Boldly popping the question, he asks if she likes cheesecake and suddenly invites her on a date for their next day off. Amused by the sweet irony, she secretly knows the famous cafe perfectly well because it sells her very own honey cheesecake. Thrilled that her business has gained academy-wide fame, she politely thanks him for the wonderful invitation. She briefly considers accepting the offer as a perfect chance to secretly conduct market research in the Noble-exclusive VIP room. However, she quickly prioritizes tending her beloved garden, spending time with Kuro, and scouting other popular stores instead. Weighing her busy schedule, she decisively makes up her mind to reject the offer. Apologizing for her extreme busyness, she firmly declines his invitation and swiftly takes her leave. Left completely stunned, Felix can only utter a small sound of surprise as his romantic advance falls flat. Without a single backward glance, Violetta continues on her way in absolute silence. Wandering the expansive academy grounds, she begins quietly searching for the perfect spot to eat her meal. Scanning her surroundings, she wonders aloud where she should settle down for a peaceful lunch. Spotting an isolated location in the distance, she happily claims it as her chosen sanctuary. Eager to dig in, she excitedly prepares to enjoy a very special midday meal today. Needing a desperate break from the chaotic cafeteria, she yearns to savor a quiet, peaceful meal completely alone. Her solitude shatters instantly when an angry voice nearby demands to know why they were called out to such an isolated place. Startled by the sudden confrontation, Violetta freezes and wonders what intense situation is unfolding just out of sight. Peeking from her hiding spot, she spots Lady Elise, the Duke's daughter and Prince's fiancée, confronting the Baron's daughter, Miss Rachel. Overwhelmed by the incredibly heavy air, Violetta cringes at the suffocating tension radiating between the two girls. Elise icily praises Rachel's friendly nature before sharply warning her about the severe dangers of getting too close to engaged men. Unintimidated, Rachel aggressively fires back, demanding to know what "too close" means and if this petty lecture is the only reason for the meeting. Observing the fierce standoff, Violetta immediately realizes that these two noblewomen absolutely loathe each other. She silently compares the graceful, fair, and perfectly noble Lady Elise against the cheerfully energetic Rachel. Since enrollment, Rachel's cute looks and boundless energy have consistently drawn the attention of charismatic, high-ranking future heirs. This brazen behavior has completely isolated Rachel from the other girls and earned her frequent, harsh scoldings from Madame Camellia. Striking a final blow, Elise ruthlessly condemns Rachel for shamelessly linking arms and spending hours with young men who already have fiancés or lovers. Shocked by the accusation, Rachel arrogantly dismisses her own provocative behavior as a completely trivial matter. Furious at this blatant disrespect, Elise sharply demands what the younger girl means by brushing the issue off so casually. Pressing her verbal attack, Elise firmly explains that Rachel's reckless actions not only hurt the other ladies but also deeply trouble the men involved. Completely unfazed by the scolding, Rachel giggles shamelessly and boasts that His Highness always smiles and instantly forgives her every transgression. Shattering the tense standoff, Violetta awkwardly blows her cover by loudly declaring what a wild coincidence it is to run into them. Startled by the sudden intrusion, both angry noblewomen whip around to face the eavesdropper in pure shock. Quickly recovering her graceful composure, Elise politely questions what exactly brought Violetta to such an isolated location. Stumbling over her words, Violetta nervously stammers that she was merely searching for a quiet, secluded place to eat her lunch. Pressing for details, Elise hesitantly asks how much she overheard, prompting Violetta to awkwardly confess she heard everything from the initial confrontation. Sighing in absolute defeat, Elise instantly realizes that Violetta witnessed their entire bitter dispute from the very beginning. A suffocating silence suddenly descends as the three girls stand completely frozen in a painfully awkward standoff. Panicking internally, Violetta desperately wonders if she should try to defuse the heavy tension by inviting both furious rivals to eat together. Before she can make a move, an unexpected shift breaks the silence as movement finally disrupts the heavy atmosphere. Suddenly distracted by a familiar scent, Rachel perks up and accurately identifies the distinct, mouth-watering aroma of rice. Freezing in absolute shock, Violetta realizes with mounting dread that the Baron's daughter somehow knows about the highly guarded existence of rice. Astonished by the hidden contents, Rachel reacts with pure shock as she wonders if it could truly be rice. Stunned by her sharp senses, Violetta questions how Rachel instantly identified the rice just by its smell. Breaking the brief silence, Violetta generously offers Rachel a piece to try if she wishes. Without a single second of hesitation, Rachel eagerly reaches out to grab the offered food. Starving for the familiar taste, Rachel takes a massive, eager bite into the rice. She chews thoughtfully in total silence, completely absorbed by the deeply nostalgic flavor. Overwhelmed with sudden emotion, Rachel whispers in absolute awe that she never thought she would eat rice again. Tears rapidly well up in Rachel's eyes as she processes the incredible long-lost taste. Baffled by her intense reaction, Violetta awkwardly clarifies that the grain is just ordinary rice. Desperate for more, Rachel practically begs Violetta to share her supply and recklessly promises to do absolutely anything in return. Capitalizing on the perfect moment, Violetta asks Rachel to be her friend and casually insists on being called Vio. Expanding her sudden peace treaty, Violetta boldly declares Lady Elise a dear friend and urges Rachel to get along with her too. Thrilled by the incredibly easy terms, Rachel joyfully agrees and happily calls her new friend Vio. Stealing a nervous glance at Elise, Violetta desperately hopes her sudden claim of friendship did not offend the proud noblewoman. Shattering the tense atmosphere, Elise smiles gently and praises Violetta for her amazing handling of the volatile situation. Relieved that the future crown princess isn't furious, Violetta internally admires Elise's truly lovely and regal smile. The very next day, Violetta receives an official and highly unexpected tea party invitation straight from Lady Isekai'd. Her younger brother, Oscar, completely freaks out upon seeing a letter originating from the prestigious house of Duke Levant. Driven by raw ambition, their father instantly orders her to seize this massive opportunity to build a connection with the future crown princess. Sweating under her father's blatant thirst for power, Violetta tells Oscar to calm down while internally sighing at the family chaos. Her mother warmly encourages her to wear her new dress and enjoy the time, completely confident in Violetta's flawless manners. Determined to make the most of the event, Violetta agrees enthusiastically and promises to write her official reply right away. When the promised day finally arrives, Isekai'd warmly welcomes Violetta to her grand estate. Violetta gracefully thanks Isekai'd for the generous invitation and presents a carefully chosen gift. Isekai'd graciously accepts the thoughtful present and politely invites her esteemed guest inside. Admiring the breathtaking roses, Isekai'd casually suggests they move out to the terrace to enjoy the lovely weather. Violetta's anxiety violently spikes as she realizes she is the only guest at what she assumed would be a massive gathering. Apologizing for the previous explosive incident, Isekai'd admits her temper flared, but Violetta happily notes the academy is peaceful again. Violetta cheerfully recalls how Rachel has completely stopped trailing the boys and now eats lunch with her every single day. Isekai'd grimly confesses that without Violetta's intervention, she would have sparked a massive scandal by publicly slapping a baron's daughter. Lowering her perfect guard, Isekai'd admits she acted out of pure jealousy, terrified the prince would abandon her over a scandal. Shocked by this deeply vulnerable revelation, Violetta finally understands the intense insecurity fueling Isekai'd's previous anger. Excitement blazing, Violetta urges Isekai'd to convey these passionate feelings to the prince, promising to testify on her behalf. Flustered by the bold suggestion, Isekai'd weakly protests that there is no reason for jealousy since they have been betrothed since birth. Defeating Isekai'd's stubbornness, Violetta sweetly insists anyone would be thrilled by her affection, leaving the princess completely unable to refuse. Isekai'd eagerly asks to open her present, and Violetta warmly grants her permission. Marveling at the gorgeous gift, Isekai'd wonders aloud if the exquisite creation is truly edible. Violetta proudly explains that the vibrant violets were specifically cultivated for culinary use. Enchanted by the fairy tale sensation, Isekai'd listens as Violetta details how she coated the freshly bloomed flowers in egg whites and sugar. Striking a nerve, Isekai'd notes the treats feel straight out of a maiden's dream and wonders if they will be sold at Mille Violet. Internal panic seizes Violetta as Isekai'd praises the shop's honey cheesecake, cementing the frustrated realization that the pâtissier's naming choice was a dead giveaway. Pushing aside her mounting anxiety, Violetta finds genuine solace in the simple fact that Lady Isekai'd is happy. Isekai'd graciously thanks her for the treat, prompting Violetta to promise an annual delivery of the candied flowers. Violetta's entrepreneurial mind races with visions of prestige, calculating that securing Lady Isekai'd as a regular could lead to a royal crest for the café. Ambition blazes in her chest as she dreams that one day, even Her Majesty the Queen will learn of her booming business. Time flies in a joyful blur as they bond over shared hobbies, concluding a highly successful and pleasant meeting. Shifting to lunchtime, Rachel eagerly asks about the menu, and Violetta unveils her innovative rice burger. Rachel declares her a culinary genius as Violetta details the mouth-watering fusion of grilled rice and potato buns, spiced beef, lettuce, and mayonnaise. Overcome with excitement, they immediately dive into the delicious meal. Brimming with immense pride, Violetta watches closely and desperately hopes her friends enjoy the creation. Stunned by the incredible flavor, Rachel emphatically declares that the burger would be a massive commercial smash. Rachel demands a never-ending supply, vowing aggressively to buy the meal every single year. Inspiration strikes Violetta like lightning, planting the ambitious seed of opening a brand new shop just for these treats. Her mind explodes with rapid-fire business strategies, envisioning affordable street stalls, side dishes, and lucrative drink combos to maximize profit margins. Determined to strike while the iron is hot, she commits to drafting a comprehensive business plan the moment she returns home. Shifting the conversation, Violetta suddenly questions why Rachel chose to hang out with her instead of accepting a boy's invitation. Shock washes over Violetta as she realizes Rachel only ever entertained male suitors in a desperate bid to secure rare rice. Rachel gleefully confesses her immense gratitude for finding Violetta, thrilled she no longer needs a rich husband to enjoy her favorite food. Utterly baffled by this revelation, Violetta completely reevaluates everything she thought she knew about her eccentric friend. Panic suddenly erupts when Rachel realizes the strict Miss Camellia has urgently summoned her. Dashing off in a frantic hurry, Rachel shouts an apology and abandons Violetta to face the aftermath alone. Left holding a mountain of surplus food meant for Rachel's massive appetite, Violetta sighs heavily. Reclaiming her composure, she resolves to save the delicious leftovers for a private, late-night feast. A sudden, startling rustle shatters the quiet, catching her completely off guard. She whips around instantly, her senses on high alert as she searches for the source of the noise. Relief and adoration flood her heart as an unbelievably cute puppy emerges from the shadows. Puzzled by the bizarre anomaly, she questions how a stray dog managed to infiltrate the highly secure academy grounds. Kneeling down, she gently denies the begging pup a bite, knowing the strong spices are dangerous for animals. The puppy barks sharply and purposefully, seizing her full attention as if delivering an urgent message. Intrigued and completely captivated, Violetta follows the mysterious dog into the unknown. Stepping tentatively into the secluded academy sanctuary, the young woman cautiously explores the quiet, atmospheric surroundings. Spotting a solitary figure resting silently in the shadows, she immediately wonders if she has unexpectedly stumbled upon the hidden owner. Recognition strikes her like a sudden flash of lightning as the little puppy whimpers softly beside the familiar, sleeping stranger. She gazes in absolute awe at the famously untouchable Ice Prince, a breathtaking man renowned across campus for his fragile, winter crystal beauty. Recalling the academy girl's excited whispers, she remembers how his icy silver demeanor contrasts flawlessly with the golden warmth of the radiant one, Oscar. Pierced deeply by the sight of his exhausted, pale face that tragically mirrors her late mother, a fierce wave of compassion completely floods her heart. Shattering the heavy, comfortable silence, she gently calls out to investigate if the weary prince is feeling all right. As his heavy eyelids flutter open in stark surprise, she quickly and profusely apologizes for carelessly disturbing his peaceful slumber. Her heart pounds wildly and relentlessly in her chest as the enigmatic young prince slowly focuses his piercing gaze upon her. Gathering her rapidly fraying courage, she boldly confronts the frail-looking noble and directly asks if he is eating properly. Shoving aside her brief hesitation at offering common street food to high nobility, she eagerly thrusts her homemade meal toward him. She proudly unveils the highly nutritious rice burger, leaving the bewildered prince staring blankly at the strange, compacted grilled rice buns. Without uttering a single word, the famished prince sinks his teeth into the strange delicacy and begins chewing with surprising intensity. Watching him eagerly devour the unconventional meal in silence, a triumphant and joyous wave of satisfaction washes completely over her. Awakened by the incredible, unexpected flavor of the dish, the stunned prince urgently attempts to demand the mysterious culinary genius's identity. Panic abruptly explodes in her mind as the looming threat of Miss Camellia's strict etiquette lecture forces her to abandon her desperate desire to feed him more. Declaring herself a mere passerby, she frantically urges him to maintain a healthy diet before abruptly bolting away from the utterly bewildered young man. Sprinting desperately across the sunlit academy grounds, she furiously races against the clock to escape the prince's grasping reach and probing questions. Clutching her wildly thrashing chest, she halts her desperate sprint and frantically wonders what strange, overwhelming emotion has suddenly hijacked her body. A few weeks pass in a quiet blur of unresolved tension. Haunted by the lingering memory of the Ice Prince, Violetta completely fails to focus on her farming or business plans. Frustration gnaws at her mind as she wonders why her brother and Rachel are growing increasingly worried about her strange behavior. A sudden voice shatters her troubled thoughts as a familiar face swiftly approaches. Snapping back to reality, she looks up and respectfully greets Lord Felix. Smiling warmly, Felix casually asks about her recent visit to the Café Millevure. Recalling the pleasant experience, Violetta enthusiastically agrees that they should definitely all go together next time. Sensing her lingering melancholy, Felix gently probes to find out what has been heavily weighing on her mind lately. Masking her true feelings, she carefully fabricates a story about a friend who has recently developed a deep romantic interest in someone. Desperate for male insight, she awkwardly asks him what specific qualities men typically find attractive in a woman. Pausing thoughtfully, Felix considers her loaded question with surprising and intense seriousness. Breaking the silence, he delivers a profoundly simple piece of advice, claiming that total authenticity is a woman's greatest charm. Greatly relieved, Violetta thanks him enthusiastically, realizing that embracing her true strengths is far better than hiding her flaws. Seizing the moment, Felix boldly confesses that he also has someone occupying his thoughts. Intrigued by this rare glimpse into male romance, Violetta leans in eagerly to hear more. Staring intensely into her eyes, Felix suddenly flips the script and directly demands her personal opinion of him. Caught completely off guard by the blunt question, Violetta blinks in absolute bewilderment. Recovering quickly, she warmly praises his wonderful nature and intensely captivating aura. A vibrant smile lights up his face as he admits how genuinely happy her rare compliment makes him. Surprised by his sudden humility, she reassures him that the entire academy constantly gossips about his undeniable charm. Blushing fiercely, Felix mutters under his breath that no one else's opinion matters to him at all. Leaning closer, an oblivious Violetta asks him to repeat his quiet, barely audible words. Panic flares in her chest as his expression abruptly darkens, leaving her terrified that she accidentally offended him. A loud shout shatters the awkward tension as Rachel aggressively calls her over for lunch. Giving a hasty goodbye, Rachel swiftly drags a bewildered Violetta away from the brooding nobleman. Helplessly dragged by her starving friend, Violetta shouts a frantic apology over her shoulder. Ignoring her questions about the interrupted chat, Rachel commands her full attention for a massive, groundbreaking scoop. Dropping an absolute bombshell, Rachel reveals that the Ice Prince has officially withdrawn to claim his noble title. Utter shock paralyzes Violetta as the devastating news crashes into her reality. Rachel casually speculates about the prince's sudden departure, guessing that imminent marriage duties pulled him away. Hiding her crushing disappointment behind a polite smile, Violetta murmurs sympathy for his demanding new life. Noticing her friend's sudden, devastating silence, Rachel stares at her with deep and genuine concern. A heavy, suffocating wave of melancholy completely overtakes Violetta's delicate features. Jumping to comfort her, Rachel vehemently insists that anyone who truly knows Violetta will inevitably fall deeply in love with her. Eager to lift the gloomy mood, Rachel excitedly proposes a massive food-filled outing for their next break, finally bringing a soft smile back to Violetta's face. Fearing she would dangerously obsess over him and neglect her crucial farming business, Violetta firmly resolves never to uncover the Ice Prince's true identity. Furious at a peer begging for a casual introduction to his cute sister, Oscar fiercely rejects the request and aggressively commands the boy to handle his own love life. Walking away from the highly annoying encounter, Oscar coldly ignores the rejected student muttering weak insults behind his back. Reflecting on the sheer absurdity of the request, Oscar firmly solidifies his unshakable belief that no one should ever meddle in their own family's romantic affairs. Halting completely mid-stride, a sudden, jarring realization utterly shatters Oscar's previously unwavering confidence. Shifting to a quiet, private moment, Oscar gently asks Violetta if she has any personal troubles she desperately wishes to consult her older brother about. Analyzing her recent dramatic shift from blushing daydreamer to melancholy silence, Oscar internally panics that his beloved sister is suffering from a devastating heartbreak. Fired up by intense brotherly rage over a hypothetical noble jerk, Oscar suddenly demands immediate answers, leaving Violetta completely baffled by his random outburst. Stumbling awkwardly over her words, Violetta cryptically hints at someone close to him before abruptly swallowing the dangerous, unconfirmed confession. Shocked and deeply defensive, Oscar furiously demands to know exactly which specific friend she means, stubbornly declaring no man is worthy of his sister. Calming his wildly racing thoughts, Oscar suddenly remembers Ernest, who recently left the academy, leaving him utterly confused as to why that specific friend came to mind. Wrestling with the intense urge to pry, Oscar recalls Ernest's magnetic but distant nature while dreading the painfully uncool reality of discussing his sister's complicated love life. Forcing his overwhelming protective instincts down, Oscar resolves to patiently wait and support his sister only when she is completely ready to open up. Breaking the heavy, suffocating silence, Oscar smoothly pivots the tense conversation by casually asking Violetta if there is anything she currently desires. Dismissing all romantic thoughts entirely, Oscar silently agrees she is far too young for love while she eagerly prepares her specific request. Beaming with unmatched excitement, Violetta enthusiastically asks to intensely research new soil and fertilizer, completely blinding him with her sheer, unexpected agricultural passion. Shifting the grand narrative focus, 15-year-old Lucia reigns proudly and officially enrolls in the prestigious Noble Academy. Thrilled to finally escape watchful eyes, Lucia revels in her incredible newfound freedom, attending school alongside third-year Violetta while their brother Oscar celebrates his recent graduation. Strolling joyfully across the vibrant, bustling campus, Lucia happily tells her older sister how incredibly fun the academy has been. Smiling with pure, genuine relief, Violetta warmly asks her energetic younger sister if she has successfully managed to make any new friends. Promising ultimate VIP treatment, Violetta eagerly offers to officially reserve a special room with exclusive samples for Lucia's highly anticipated visit to Millview. Overflowing with absolute adoration for her smart and elegant sister, Lucia cheers wildly and excitedly declares she cannot wait to thoroughly explore the outside world. Stepping boldly into the bustling city streets, an awestruck Lucia marvels endlessly at the breathtaking, vibrant wonders of the outside world. Savoring a completely mouth-watering treat, she happily praises the amazing local restaurants, cafes, and her spectacularly unforgettable experience at Millview. Crushing disappointment suddenly washes completely over Lucia as her maid announces it is time to return, abruptly ending her thrilling exploration right before curfew. Staring deeply into the quickly darkening evening, a fierce, highly rebellious spark suddenly ignites deep within the young noblewoman's heart. Capitalizing on her father's rapid approval for a late-night arts and fashion concert, Lucia orchestrates a brilliantly deceptive, foolproof cover story. Successfully slipping completely away from her frantic maid's desperate search, Lucia smugly congratulates herself on flawlessly executing the perfect escape plan. Plunging eagerly into the mysterious, atmospheric evening, she boldly steps forward to fully uncover the hidden secrets of the shadowy city streets. With her racing heart pumping in pure exhilaration, Lucia joyfully sprints after a stray kitten through the mesmerizing, moonlight-bathed landscape. Panting heavily as the agile, elusive kitten completely escapes, she sighs in slight disappointment but quickly brushes the minor failure aside. Smiling brightly into the refreshingly cool night air, she fully and happily admits the rebellious little chase was an incredibly fun adventure. Thoroughly satisfied with her daring, secret excursion, Lucia finally decides it is officially time to safely head back home. Navigating the completely quiet, empty streets, she confidently assumes her current path will quickly lead her straight back to the bustling main road. Freezing dead in her tracks, a sudden wave of primal terror violently spikes down her spine as the distinct, ominous sound of pursuing footsteps echoes directly behind her. Sprinting desperately toward the main street, a terrified Lucia begs her unseen pursuer to leave her alone. Suddenly grabbed from behind, she screams for help until a mysterious savior abruptly commands the attacker to stop. A fierce dog violently lunges out of the shadows and viciously attacks the stunned assailant. Overwhelmed by the aggressive canine, the terrified thug screams in pure agony. Rushing to her side, the handsome rescuer frantically checks her for injuries while fiercely scolding her for walking alone in such a dangerous district. Shocked that she lacks a proper escort, he listens in complete disbelief as she stammers about the nearby concert hall. Turning swiftly to his trusted subordinate, he sternly commands Amber to escort the shaken girl safely home. Crushing disappointment floods Lucia's heart as she quietly asks why her captivating savior refuses to personally escort her himself. Arriving back safely at the estate, she is instantly swarmed by her frantic maid who demands to know where she wandered off to. Still reeling from the rapid blur of events, she blushes deeply while remembering his intensely worried expression. Consumed completely by thoughts of the mysterious hero, she desperately yearns to uncover his identity and see him again. Hatching a brilliant plan, she realizes attending high society evening parties might perfectly engineer a destined chance encounter. Dancing tirelessly with countless dull suitors at various elite galas, she remains entirely fixated on finding her true destined partner. Sweeping her eager gaze across a crowded ballroom, her heart stops completely when she finally spots him. Thrilled beyond measure, she triumphantly declares this magical moment an absolute destined reunion. Brimming with arrogant confidence, she silently calculates that if his status matches his gorgeous looks, she might graciously allow him to be her lover. Losing sight of him in the swirling aristocratic crowd, she frantically searches the bustling room for the elusive man. Stepping outside to look for him, she is abruptly cornered by a highly intimidating stranger who aggressively blockades her path. Trembling under the terrifying man's piercing gaze, she foolishly and selfishly gives her older sister Violetta's name instead of her own. Desperately trying to escape his aggressive invitation, she panics as he smirks and insists they keep today's creepy encounter a secret. Relying heavily on her strong older sister's flawless reputation, the cowardly Lucia had developed a dangerous habit of stealing Violetta's identity to avoid trouble. Shifting forward in time, a concerned academy friend approaches Lucia to ask if her supposedly bad older sister is ruthlessly bullying her. Utterly confused by the random and bizarre accusation, Lucia demands to know what strange rumors have been spreading around campus. Dropping a devastating bombshell, the friend reveals that scandalous rumors falsely claim Violetta has been secretly sneaking out into the dangerous night. Graduating from the academy at 18, Violetta is suddenly married off to Marquis Ernesto Wolfs. Recalling her school days, she realizes her only interaction with the Ice Prince involved a brief food exchange without a single conversation. Shock strikes her core as she finally connects the dots, confirming her new husband is indeed Ernesto Wolfs. Vicious and overwhelming scandalous rumors had erupted right before her graduation, falsely painting her as a ruthless seductress. Despite the absolute lack of truth, the highly sensitive social world instantly crushed her reputation and vaporized all marriage prospects. Utterly stunned, she reels from the shocking reality that her father actually orchestrated a union with the Marquis. She shrewdly deduces her father cleared Ernesto's crippling debt, simultaneously disposing of his ruined daughter and securing a powerful favor. Gazing warmly at the majestic dog Amber, she happily realizes he is the tiny puppy she once fed. A heavy, contemplative silence fills the brisk air as Violetta quietly processes her strange new reality. Stepping into the courtyard, the tense atmosphere thickens as Ernesto prepares for his imminent departure. Captivated by his breathtaking beauty, she silently laments that being despised by such a man is a truly tragic fate. Catching her lingering gaze, the stunning Marquis turns back to face his unexpected bride. Breaking the uncomfortable silence, Ernesto gently apologizes for his cold behavior the previous day. Warning her of the region's freezing winds, he earnestly commands her to take good care of herself. Bowing gracefully, she thanks him and acknowledges the thoughtful instructions he left for the servants regarding her preferences. With a final farewell, Ernesto turns his back and walks purposefully away into the biting cold. Seeking warmth, her concerned maid gently suggests they retreat back inside the manor. A sudden, jarring noise slices through the quiet estate, instantly capturing Violetta's sharp attention. Pure panic erupts as a terrified servant desperately screams for the madam to run indoors. A massive dark blur descends from the sky, but Violetta joyfully welcomes her beloved bird, Kuro. Ignoring the maid's frantic pleas to retreat, she affectionately greets the massive creature that loyally chased after her. Finding a note from her brother attached to the saddle, she warmly thanks him for sending Kuro her way. Turning back to her horrified staff, she casually decides to officially introduce her monstrous pet. Soothing their intense terror, she proudly presents Kuro as her highly intelligent and gentle black steel raven. Chuckling at their lingering dread, she realizes the isolated locals are completely unfamiliar with such a legendary beast. Spotting a wriggling groundworm, the sharp-eyed Kuro instantly prepares to devour the helpless prey. Trembling with absolute horror, a pale maid nervously questions what else the terrifying raven consumes. Violetta cheerfully explains that Kuro eats anything from meat to monsters, but is strictly trained to never harm livestock or humans. Smiling with chilling innocence, she smoothly confirms that a wild, untrained black steel raven would absolutely eat a human. Sebastian the butler shatters the tense moment, urgently announcing a serious development. He quickly reports that a massive mountain of packages addressed directly to the madam has just arrived. Beaming with radiant excitement, Violetta enthusiastically celebrates the perfectly timed delivery. Spotting a sharply dressed associate, she joyfully calls out Dean's name across the bustling courtyard. Bowing with deep respect, Dean proudly announces he has personally delivered her highly anticipated orders. Thrilled by the elite service, she praises the vice-chairman of Magnolia Trading, who fiercely vows to go to the ends of the earth for her. A curious maid excitedly asks what the strange items are, prompting Violetta to proudly reveal her newly acquired seaweed fertilizer. Violetta cleverly explains that they easily sourced the vital seaweed directly from the Wolf's territory's own vast coastal lands. Determined to enrich the struggling land, she heavily invests her vast personal merchant fortune to transform ignored resources into highly valuable assets. Empowered by her husband's absolute permission, she swiftly commands her eager staff to arrange the necessary personnel immediately. Glowing with intense admiration, her loyal staff passionately praises her brilliant leadership as she shines brighter than ever before. Discovering extra supplies in the shipment, Violetta learns the excess top-grade beer is actually a generous wedding gift from the chairman and dean. Thrilled by the wonderful surprise, she enthusiastically anticipates creating even more supreme, world-class goods in their rapidly improving territory. Bowing deeply with immense respect, Dean passionately prays that her magnificent light will shine even brighter in the coming future. After finishing the grueling wheat harvest, the anxious but hopeful villagers diligently spread the new seaweed fertilizer across the barren fields. Stepping before the exhausted workers, Violetta warmly presents the premium beer as a highly earned reward for their incredible hard work. She kindly encourages the weary laborers to drink plenty and fully restore their depleted strength for the coming seasons. Erupting in sheer joyous celebration, the thrilled villagers raise their heavy wooden mugs high and cheer enthusiastically for their generous lady. Violetta strategically plans to let the seaweed completely enrich the soil until spring, perfectly preparing the fields for the next vital cycle of wheat and clover seeds. Staring at the vast agricultural potential, she eagerly anticipates cultivating hardy potatoes and crisp turnips in the rapidly approaching year. A sudden, biting chill violently interrupts her grand plans, harshly reminding her that the freezing autumn air is already creeping in. Shivering slightly, she debates lighting the fireplace but practically hesitates to waste precious fuel on just herself before winter truly begins. A polite double knock at the door completely breaks her chilly concentration as a servant quietly requests immediate entry. Stepping into the room, the servant respectfully guides a highly curious Violetta toward a mysterious, carefully wrapped package. The servant happily reveals that Ernesto specially prepared the thoughtful gift to ensure his new bride's ultimate comfort in the freezing climate. Wrapping herself in the luxurious, breathtakingly warm fur, a soft sigh of pure, absolute contentment escapes her lips. Though utterly baffled by Ernesto's true intentions, she blushes slightly as the maid brightly insists the gorgeous garment suits her perfectly. Brushing aside her deep, lingering confusion, she softly vows to deeply treasure the incredibly warm, unexpected gift. Greeting Sebastian the very next morning, Violetta politely asks the stern head butler a pressing question about the unfamiliar territory. Curious about local survival customs, she asks what the villagers do during the brutal winter, and Sebastian promptly confirms that hunting becomes the primary activity. Sebastian proudly reveals that Ernesto is a master hunter who personally tracked and killed the very beast that provided her luxurious new fur coat. Deeply touched by the immense personal effort, she happily resolves to write her husband a heartfelt thank you letter. Shifting topics completely, she questions what Ernesto actually does in the royal capital, but Sebastian admits it is a highly classified mission directly from the queen. Violetta logically deduces that if even his most trusted butler remains entirely in the dark, Ernesto's royal task must be dangerously important. She quietly reflects on the historical fact that all high-ranking nobles in the country originally possessed unique, extraordinary special abilities. Knowing her own raven's family safely retained their rare ability to communicate with birds, she heavily suspects Ernesto might secretly harbor his own dormant power. Her mind races wildly with the thrilling possibility that Ernesto's highly classified royal work heavily utilizes a dangerous, hidden magical ability. Eager to fully understand her new domain, she commands Sebastian to immediately show her the territory's official financial management records. Reviewing the dismal ledgers, she realizes the wolf's territory barely survives each year, heavily relying entirely on massive, unexplained royal assistance. Staring in pure shock at the astronomical support funds, she desperately wonders what terrifying, high-stakes work Ernesto actually performs to earn such wealth. Closing the heavy ledger with a quiet, resigned sigh, she wisely concludes that some dangerous, high-level secrets are far better left entirely undiscovered. Analyzing the grim situation, Violetta realizes the territory would be utterly doomed if their overworked lord suddenly perished. 3 years after a tragic accident forced 18-year-old Ernesto into power, the family's financial situation suffered a catastrophic nosedive. Crippled by devastating crop failures and plummeting tax revenue, the unprepared young Marquis faced absolute ruin. Desperate to survive, he frantically sold off ancestral assets and mortgaged vital mining rights just to keep the estate afloat. Relieved that her massive dowry eradicated the debts, Violetta gently pets Amber while feeling a fierce surge of hope. Staring at the untouched earth, she fiercely resolves to invest massive effort into transforming the raw land into a flourishing paradise. Pivoting to boost morale, she emphatically commands her bewildered chef to immediately fry up a fresh batch of donuts. Detailing the sweet recipe, She passionately insists that a delicious, energy-packed meal is the crucial first step to victory. Springing into action, the focused chef swiftly gathers his essential kitchen tools and ingredients to execute her bold request. Flour and rich components are rapidly sifted and whisked together in a massive wooden mixing bowl. With expert precision, the chef skillfully folds the thick, sticky batter to absolute culinary perfection. Dropping the perfectly shaped rings into boiling oil, the treats sizzle violently as they fry to a mouth-watering golden brown. Presenting a towering plate of steaming pastries, an ecstatic Violetta loudly declares it is time for the ultimate taste test. Biting into the piping hot pastry, a heavenly explosion of rich, satisfying flavor completely overwhelms her delighted senses. Showering Chef Theo with intense praise for his genius, the loyal cook bows deeply in humble gratitude. Craving an even more intense rush, Violetta boldly suggests smothering the finished treats in a massive mountain of sugar. Horrified by the extreme extravagance, her frantic staff warns that the strict butler would ruthlessly punish such insane waste. A harsh wave of reality crashes over her as she suddenly remembers that sugar is an incredibly precious and rare commodity here. She realizes her wealthy upbringing in the booming capital dangerously spoiled her perception of highly expensive, scarce ingredients. Refusing to surrender, she passionately brainstorms a brilliant new strategy to somehow provide abundant, sugar-coated donuts for her entire territory. Delegating the remaining estate duties to her capable staff, an energetic Violetta boldly announces she is heading out for an official inspection. Bowing deeply with the utmost respect, a loyal maid warmly wishes the madam a safe and careful journey. Stepping confidently into the brisk outdoors, Violetta instantly notices the chilling air is significantly colder than the climate of her capital homeland. Spotting the terribly run-down administrative office, she quickly deduces they must aggressively repair the crumbling structure before it completely collapses. Scanning the sprawling estate grounds, a wave of concern washes over her as she realizes the main mansion itself is visibly falling apart. Startled by a sudden, violent ruffle of feathers, she urgently questions Kuro as the massive raven fiercely locks onto a distant target. Flapping his giant wings in absolute excitement, Kuro prepares to launch as a frantic Violetta commands him to wait and calm down. Staring intently into the distance, she desperately tries to identify the mysterious object that has completely captivated her giant avian companion. Terrified villagers violently flinch and apologize as an aggressive guard fiercely screams at them for trespassing on the noble grounds. Realizing the terrifying crow is merely obsessed with cheap sweet turnips, the exasperated guard heavily sighs and fully accepts the bizarre situation. Winding up his pitch, the bold guard generously hurls a massive root vegetable directly toward the highly eager giant bird. Snatching the treat flawlessly from the air, Kuro happily devours the turnip while a thoroughly stunned Violetta stammers her thanks. Waving off her formal gratitude with a hearty laugh, the guard finds it absolutely hilarious that such a fearsome crow loves basic cow fodder. Closely analyzing the familiar-looking vegetable, Violetta quickly realizes the plant's natural sweet juice perfectly explains why livestock eat it so eagerly. Igniting with sudden culinary curiosity, she urgently asks the rugged men if humans can also safely consume the strange sweet turnips. The knowledgeable guard rapidly explains that while the leaves are fine, the boiled root tastes terrible and is far too earthy to eat raw. Deeply pondering this completely foreign local crop, she quietly mentions that such a unique vegetable never existed in her native territory. Surprised by her sheer lack of knowledge, the guard reveals these specific turnips completely lose their sweetness if grown anywhere outside this freezing region. Struck by a massive jolt of brilliant inspiration, she eagerly offers to pay for one of the sweet turnips to conduct immediate experiments. Refusing her money with a warm smile, the generous guard insists she take as many sweet turnips as she desperately needs for free. Connecting the agricultural dots in a spectacular flash of insight, she triumphantly concludes these regional sweet turnips are actually highly valuable sugar beets. Sprinting fiercely back to the manor's kitchen, she rapidly demands a knife, a cutting board, and a massive pot of boiling water. Following her ruthless, precise commands, the kitchen staff thoroughly washes, peels, and dices the sweet turnips into tiny, perfect cubes. Plunging the raw vegetable cubes directly into the violently bubbling pot, they fiercely boil the tough roots until perfectly tender. Wrapping the softened turnips tightly in a thick cloth, she aggressively squeezes out the precious juice to simmer and spread on a cooling tray. Channeling her absolute, fiery passion for gourmet delights, she ruthlessly crushes the completely cooled, crystallized candy block into a fine, sparkling powder. Presenting the final, miraculous product, she confidently commands the highly skeptical Chef Theo to immediately taste her mysterious new creation. Shocked entirely to his core by the undeniable sweetness, the brilliant chef loudly declares to a stunned room that the powder is pure sugar. Brimming with unstoppable, triumphant energy, she wildly proclaims this monumental discovery as the absolute sugar for a brand new era. Cementing her grand, world-changing vision, she officially and proudly dubs her revolutionary new culinary treasure, Golden Sugar. Barking rapid, high-stakes orders, she urgently initiates the massive Golden Sugar mass production project to completely revolutionize their impoverished territory. Calculating the enormous, inevitable profits, she knows this affordable golden sugar will instantly dominate a market choked by expensive luxuries and unpredictable honey. A sudden, booming shout shatters her intense plotting as the strict head butler Sebastian angrily announces his highly agitated arrival. Glaring furiously at the completely chaotic kitchen, an exasperated Sebastian fiercely demands to know exactly what insane, disruptive scheme she is plotting now. Smirking with absolute, unshakable confidence, Violetta completely ignores his furious scolding as the glorious dawn of her brilliant new commercial empire begins. Frustrated by her reckless independence, Sebastian firmly lectures Violetta for wandering without attendance and forcibly making sudden purchases. He earnestly begs his new mistress to stop deliberately painting herself in such a wicked, negative light. Acknowledging his deep and genuine concern, Violetta softly apologizes for causing the loyal butler unnecessary worry. She quietly realizes the Marquis servants actually respect her, entirely due to Ernest's surprisingly protective influence. Igniting with sudden inspiration, she claps her hands together and enthusiastically orders Sebastian to mobilize. She urgently commands him to prepare a secure carriage, armed guards, and a striking dress that unequivocally screams absolute nobility. Completely baffled by her grand declaration of a sweet revolution, the bewildered butler scrambles to fulfill her confusing orders. Later that night, Violetta happily reviews a grateful letter from Rachel and a lucrative business proposal from Magnolia Trading Company. Spotting a beautifully crafted, anonymous envelope, she instantly wonders if the highly suspicious letter is secretly from Ernest. Amused by Sebastian's silent delivery, she playfully speculates if the stoic butler is secretly acting as a romantic middleman for her husband. Shifting immediately to critical territory business, she sharply informs Sebastian that the central administrative office is in terrible structural ruin. Sebastian quickly assures her it is scheduled for future repairs, noting the mansion's fixes were prioritized specifically for her arrival. Refusing to wait for the agricultural off-season, she fiercely commands him to prioritize repairing the heavily damaged office immediately. She strategically argues that fortifying two separate strongholds creates a far better central refuge for the vulnerable villagers during disasters. Sincerely apologizing for the sudden inconvenience to the staff, she boldly claims full responsibility for the massive operational shift. Brushing off her apologies with a proud smirk, Sebastian assures her the hardened servants are completely accustomed to inconvenience and poverty. Stepping flawlessly into her majestic role, Violetta prepares to thoroughly inspect the outer limits of her rapidly changing new domain. Her heavily guarded carriage rolls smoothly out of the estate, projecting absolute authority across the freezing, rustic landscape. Spotting her grand arrival, a stunned villager violently flinches as he recognizes the strange lady who previously rode the giant crow. Absolute shock ripples through the anxious peasants as a stern guard firmly introduces the mysterious woman as the ruling marchioness. Stepping gracefully forward, Violetta warmly and officially introduces herself to the utterly bewildered guard named Tom. She politely asks the stunned man to generously spare some sweet turnip seeds and expertly guide her in cultivating them. Overwhelmed by the incredible honor, Tom stammers eagerly and vows to happily assist his noble lord in any way possible. Beaming with genuine gratitude, she generously presents the flustered guard with a lavish reward for sharing his precious sweet turnips. Just before the brutal winter slams into the territory, a massive sack of premium fresh rice arrives directly from the Ravens family estate. Overflowing with sheer joy, Violetta excitedly celebrates the highly anticipated delivery of her beloved fresh harvest. Promising to teach her highly curious maid the ultimate cooking methods, she eagerly marches straight into the bustling kitchen. Tasting the flawlessly cooked grains, her ecstatic chef loudly declares the magnificent dish to be pure culinary happiness. Thrilled by his massive enthusiasm, she happily encourages the chef to relentlessly experiment with bold new recipes like hearty soups. She thoughtfully warns him never to force the exotic ingredient on the locals, promising to share her personal favorite recipes later. The biting cold violently deepens day by day as the harsh winter brings a complete, freezing halt to all exhausting farm work. Finding joy in the quiet season, she diligently reviews financial ledgers, inspects office repairs, and happily learns snow games from town children. Watching the energetic children play in the snow, a fleeting, bittersweet thought crosses her mind about how unbelievably cute her own child might be. She ruthlessly crushes the impossible fantasy, utterly convinced that Ernest has absolutely zero intention of producing any Marquis heirs with her. As spring finally shatters the brutal winter, her thriving wheat and clover seeds violently erupt into a rapidly spreading carpet of vibrant green. Marveling at the unprecedented growth, the farmers praise the seaweed fertilizer for yielding the strongest wheat field ever seen. Approaching her one-year marriage anniversary, Violetta watches the vibrant summer wheat grow incredibly tall. Anticipation fiercely builds as the monumental results of her first year's grueling labor prepare to finally reveal themselves. Violetta joyfully imagines Ernest's utter shock upon discovering the golden, overwhelmingly abundant wheat fields. Eagerness completely consumes her heart as she desperately waits to witness his stunned reaction. Shattering her vivid daydream, Sebastian abruptly announces her husband's imminent return next month. Pitying her own absurd forgetfulness, she suddenly remembers the surreal fact that she actually has a husband. Brushing off the bizarre reality with a light-hearted joke, she fully acknowledges her binding marital status. Praising Sebastian's flawless efficiency, she playfully laments the still-pending mansion repair plans. Bowing respectfully, the stoic butler hands her a fresh stack of newly arrived letters. Shifting the conversation's tone instantly, Sebastian sharply questions if she has noticed anything unusual happening recently. He quickly reveals a highly disturbing rumor currently spreading like wildfire among the terrified servants. Chilling whispers claim a restless ghost now violently haunts the shadowy halls of the sprawling mansion. Staring blankly ahead, Violetta quietly repeats the terrifying word in absolute disbelief. Rationally blaming a sneaky animal for the missing food, she commands Sebastian to generously compensate any affected servants. Pressing the issue, Sebastian begs her to spend the remaining dress budget to protect her noble husband's fragile reputation. Flatly rejecting the extravagant luxury, she fiercely commands him to allocate those exact funds toward critical mansion repairs. Executing a brilliant financial strategy, she orders the leftover budget distributed as servant bonuses to aggressively stimulate the winter economy. Utterly fascinated by her relentless drive, Sebastian deeply questions what ambitious masterplan she intends to conquer next. Igniting with unshakable resolve, she fiercely vows to risk everything to successfully mass-produce her revolutionary golden sugar. Completely baffled by her extreme dedication, Sebastian bluntly demands to know why she bleeds so heavily for this desolate land. Dropping a devastating bombshell, scandalous rumors abruptly expose Ernest Wolfs for shamelessly cheating with his pre-marriage lover. Absolute shock paralyzes her entirely as she repeats the crushing accusation of her husband's blatant infidelity. Grappling with the scandalous affair rumors, Violetta questions her husband's supposed hatred for immoral women. Pondering his desperate need for an heir, she wonders if he intends to marry his mistress as a second wife. A fierce wave of frustration hits her as she feels terribly looked down upon by his alleged actions. Refusing to jump to conclusions, she sharply questions the true sender and purpose of the anonymous letter. She fiercely debates whether the mysterious mistress declared war or a meddlesome third party intervened. Staring intently at the letter, she actively suppresses the urge to burn the potential evidence. A bitter sense of irony washes over her as she remembers originally suggesting their divorce. Panic abruptly flares as she realizes a sudden divorce would completely destroy her unfinished agricultural projects. Shifting her focus to sheer survival, she prioritizes formulating a strategic response to his potential divorce demand. Steeling her absolute resolve, she accepts that she never expected love and must fiercely continue her mission. A heavy, suffocating silence engulfs her as she desperately tries to organize her chaotic thoughts. Enduring agonizingly sleepless nights, she heavily sighs as the inevitable morning finally arrives. Greeting her loyal maid, she firmly prepares to ride out on her massive black steel raven. Plotting her next major move, she fiercely resolves to force Ernesto to acknowledge her absolute usefulness. Crippling anxiety violently spikes as she recalls his intense dislike for her in their loveless political marriage. Desperately searching for conversation topics, she dreads boring him with farming or meddling in his royal duties. Utterly paralyzed by crippling indecision, she frustratingly realizes she is completely stuck. Mounting the giant bird, she begrudgingly accepts that she must simply wait for Ernesto's ultimate decision. Rebellious fire ignites within her as she fiercely rejects the very concept of divorce and his affair. Dread violently grips her heart as she wonders how he would physically react to her honest feelings. She bitterly envisions his handsome face violently twisting into an expression of absolute disgust. Resigned to her tragic fate, she completely acknowledges that he only sees her as an immoral villainess. Soaring gracefully through the crisp sky, she proudly points out the massively thriving crops to Kuro. A sudden, overwhelming urge to simply run away entirely flashes dangerously across her burdened mind. Spotting the returning carriage, she frantically commands Kuro to sprint back to the estate. Dashing wildly inside, she urgently orders Annie to help her immediately change for her husband's arrival. Igniting with fierce determination, Annie loudly promises to prepare her mistress with full spirit. Violetta stands perfectly poised in the grand hall, masking her intense inner turmoil with a flawless posture. Crushing dread completely washes over her as she prepares to face a husband who feels like a total stranger. Wrestling violently with the affair's suspicions, she desperately agonizes over what specific expression to wear. Projecting absolute nobility, she formally and politely welcomes Lord Ernesto back to his massive estate. Bursting frantically into the room, a wild-eyed Ernesto desperately demands to know what magic she used for the harvest. Utterly shocked by his intense, uncharacteristic outburst, she steps back in pure bewilderment. Instantly regaining her composure, she humbly deflects the massive praise to the hardworking locals. Refusing to accept her deflection, he fiercely insists the official report credited her absolute genius. Staring him down confidently, she firmly declares she used brilliant agricultural knowledge instead of miracles. Completely baffled by her grounded explanation, Ernesto blankly repeats her bizarre claim about farming methods. Smiling with absolute confidence, she brightly assures the stunned Marquis that anyone can easily use these techniques. Launching instantly into an enthusiastic lecture, she rapidly details the brilliant seaweed and clover fertilizer rotation. Suddenly catching her runaway enthusiasm, she politely halts the lesson and urges the exhausted lord to finally rest. Projecting absolute grace, Violetta formally and politely welcomes Lord Ernesto back to his massive estate. Caught slightly off guard, Ernesto softly thanks his wife for the incredibly warm reception. Shifting the mood instantly, he firmly declares that he has an urgent matter to critically discuss with her. Later that tense evening, the estranged husband and wife sit together at the grand dining table. Marveling at the extravagant feast, Violetta silently praises Chef Theo for preparing their first luxurious meal since the wedding. Waiting anxiously for him to speak, she frustratingly realizes he shows absolutely no sign of initiating the crucial conversation. Annoyed that night has completely fallen without a single word exchanged, she aggressively resolves to break the heavy silence herself. Stealing her absolute resolve, she directly asks Ernesto what urgent matter he desperately needed to discuss. Staring intensely into her eyes, the stoic Marquis pauses heavily before delivering his shocking revelation. Breaking the suffocating silence, he reveals that vicious rumors about her have rapidly infiltrated the royal capital. Utterly stunned by the massive scale of the gossip, Violetta repeats the location in absolute disbelief. He bluntly explains the scandalous rumors claim she maliciously surrounded herself with several local lovers during his prolonged absence. Exploding with righteous indignation, she fiercely denies the outrageous accusation as an absolute impossibility. Frantically defending her pure honor, she strongly asserts she has never stepped foot outside the wolf's territory since their wedding. Her mind violently races as she desperately attempts to pinpoint the malicious source of the highly destructive lies. Analyzing the battlefield, she fiercely deduces a jealous rival might be engineering a forced divorce. Terrified of his reaction, she silently panics over whether Ernesto actually believed the ruthless political sabotage. Shattering her intense anxiety, he firmly and immediately declares he knows the scandalous rumors are completely baseless. A soft, incredibly rare smile graces his handsome face as he completely dismisses the vicious lies. He proudly reveals Sebastian's official reports thoroughly proved she poured her private funds into brilliant land development. Bowing his head slightly, the proud lord sincerely thanks Violetta for completely saving his struggling domain. Plagued by heavy guilt, he tragically admits his painful realization that he had completely failed his own territory. Slamming her hands on the table, she fiercely rejects his crushing self-deprecation. Passionately defending his hidden sacrifices, she loudly insists the ledgers clearly prove he desperately protected the estate. Highlighting his ultimate victory, she emphasizes the people never starved or harbored discontent under his steady rule. She brilliantly argues that the villagers' immediate cooperation with her was entirely fueled by their deep respect for his leadership. Brushing off the toxic capital rumors, she confidently declares that his unwavering trust in her is the only thing that matters. Stunned by her fierce loyalty, Ernesto stares in absolute awe at his radiant and fiercely intelligent wife. A heavy, intensely emotional silence settles over the grand room as her powerful words completely shatter his cold exterior. Flooded with immense relief, she happily celebrates clearing the extremely awkward tension of their long-awaited reunion. Suddenly hardening his intense gaze, he ominously reveals that the devastating conversation is far from over. Launching a ruthless counterattack, he fiercely explains he launched a massive investigation into the dark origins of the malicious rumors. Digging deeply into her haunted past, his relentless spies meticulously tracked the destructive gossip straight back to its toxic roots. Dropping an absolutely catastrophic bombshell, he bluntly reveals her younger sister deliberately impersonated her to cause the scandalous chaos. Backing up his devastating claim, he firmly presents airtight eyewitness testimonies describing a fake Violetta with unmistakable golden hair. Exposing the vile betrayal, he relentlessly details how the selfish sister weaponized Violetta's clean name to indulge in wicked amusements. Sealing the absolute truth, he confirms he cornered her older brother Oscar, whose guilty silence served as a damning confession. Paralyzed by the inescapable, crushing reality of her family's ultimate betrayal, a terrified Violetta frantically wonders how to survive the fallout. Hearing the toxic whispers about Violetta sneaking out and bullying her, a terrified Lucia hesitates to speak up. Paralyzed by fear, she desperately wishes to correct the lies but remains silently frozen. She agonizingly realizes that exposing her own lie would permanently destroy her friendships. Startled by her peers, she abruptly excuses herself and flees the suffocating gossip. Escaping the malicious whispers, Lucia realizes her cowardly lie has fed on malice and grown completely out of control. Overwhelmed by the escalating disaster, she breaks down in a secluded corridor. Meanwhile, a frustrated Oscar scolds Violetta for not taking the damaging rumors seriously. He angrily demands to know where the outrageous, shameless villainous slander even originated. Pondering the rapid spread, Oscar suspects extreme jealousy toward the Rains family's recent booming success. Determining a plan of attack, he suggests aggressively investigating the source since the gossip has already reached their siblings. Boiling with intense protective rage, Oscar fiercely vows to hunt the culprits down and beat the truth out of them. Eavesdropping nearby, a panicking Lucia realizes her furious brother is about to expose her as the true culprit. Bursting into the room in absolute floods of tears, she desperately apologizes to her stunned siblings. Sobbing uncontrollably, she chokes out the devastating confession that she maliciously used Violetta's name to save herself. Oscar and Violetta freeze in absolute silence, completely blindsided by the weeping girl's revelation. Recovering from the shock, Oscar gently urges the hysterical Lucia to calm down and explain everything slowly. Disbelief shatters his composure as he demands to know exactly what his little sister has done. Embracing the trembling girl, Violetta gently wipes away her tears and expresses profound relief that she is physically unharmed. A deeply ashamed Lucia confesses she stole Violetta's identity because she believed her flawless older sister could handle any consequence. Shocking them both, a fiercely resolved Violetta commands them to leave the destructive rumors exactly as they are. Oscar and Lucia flinch violently, entirely baffled by her sudden, illogical decree. Prioritizing her sister's safety above her own honor, Violetta insists she cares absolutely nothing for high society or prestigious marriage proposals. She confidently promises to explain everything to their father, assuring Lucia that the vicious rumors will eventually fade away. Overwhelmed by sheer gratitude, Lucia tearfully thanks her incredibly selfless older sister. Soon after the scandalous ordeal, Violetta's sudden political marriage is officially finalized. Lucia bitterly reflects on how their father arranged the union while Violetta's unfairly ruined reputation still poisoned high society. Absolute horror freezes Lucia's heart when she discovers her sister's new fiancé, Marquis Ernest Wolfs, is the exact silver-haired man she secretly loves. Watching the tense wedding ceremony, Lucia notices Ernest constantly staring at Violetta while the bride coldly ignores him. Piercing through the supposedly loveless facade, Lucia recognizes a profound, special emotion hidden deep within Ernest's icy gaze. A beautiful, tragic realization completely washes over the heartbroken younger sister as she observes their undeniable bond. Crushing regret instantly consumes her as she desperately wishes she had never stolen Violetta's name that fateful night. Agonizing over her cowardice, she wonders if she could have been his bride had she bravely denied the rumors from the start. Accepting her cruel reality, Lucia fiercely vows to bury her romantic feelings forever to protect the older sister she deeply adores. Shifting back to the present, a deeply remorseful Ernesto formally apologizes to Violetta for believing the disgraceful past rumors. Bowing his head in deep shame, he deeply regrets allowing the toxic lies to sway him into treating her so rudely. Gracefully dismissing his heavy guilt, Violetta calmly reassures him that no real harm was done since she preferred her quiet hobbies anyway. Internally, Violetta reflects on her ironclad resolve to absolutely never allow Lucia's pristine reputation to be tarnished. She vividly remembers their father's grand ambitions for Lucia to one day become the crown prince's consort or marry high nobility. To safeguard Lucia's brilliant future, Violetta convinced their father to leave the rumors uncorrected and keep the younger sister securely confined at home. Violetta privately admits that taking the scandalous blame was actually a highly convenient excuse to avoid marriage forever, never anticipating Ernesto would meticulously uncover the hidden truth. Struck by intense guilt, Ernest fiercely admits he can never forgive himself for foolishly believing the toxic rumors. Bowing his head in deep shame, the stern Marquis offers a sincere and heavy apology. Shocked by his raw vulnerability, Violetta suddenly realizes her husband possesses an incredibly sensitive and responsible heart. Staring intently at her, Ernest seriously reveals he has desperately searched for a proper way to atone. A sudden chill violently pierces Violetta's chest as a terrifying realization dawns on her. Desperately wanting to stop his crushing words, she entirely fails to force a single sound from her paralyzed throat. Shattering the heavy silence, Ernest bluntly proposes a full divorce to finally grant her absolute freedom. He fiercely vows to completely return her massive dowry and fully compensate her ambitious territorial investments. Panicking at the disastrous proposal, Violetta aggressively warns that such a massive payout would trigger instant financial collapse. Relying on her sharp business instincts, she fiercely demands to know how he could possibly gather such an impossible fortune. Refusing to accept his stubborn defense, she ruthlessly calculates the grim reality and declares the massive repayment absolutely impossible. Pushing the chaotic divorce talk aside, she desperately begs the Marquis to simply wait 2 more years for her plans to bloom. Searching for a hidden motive, she boldly confronts him and asks if he is secretly hiding a passionate affair. Utterly blindsided by the wild accusation, Ernest violently flinches in pure, absolute shock. Rapidly strategizing, she coldly suggests using their lack of an heir as a future divorce excuse to dodge the crippling compensation. Burning with fierce agricultural passion, she violently refuses to abandon her revolutionary golden sugar and 4-crop rotation projects. Snapping out of his absolute daze, a frantic Ernest desperately shouts that he is definitely not having an affair. Refusing to accept his frantic denial, Violetta sharply turns her back on the flustered Marquis. Reaching decisively into her garments, she swiftly retrieves a highly suspicious, anonymous letter. Slamming the scandalous letter onto the table, she demands to know if he genuinely expects her to ignore the cheating rumors. Swallowing her crushing pride, she tragically offers to tolerate a second wife until the divorce is officially finalized. Trembling with intense emotional agony, she desperately begs him not to rip away her hard-earned life and agricultural dreams. Pierced deeply by her heartbreaking vulnerability, Ernest softly and tragically whispers her name. Closing the heavy distance between them, he gently reaches out to soothe his terrified wife. Staring intensely into her eyes, he fiercely vows that he absolutely never intended to steal anything from her. Swearing on his absolute honor, he vehemently denies the cheating allegations and desperately begs her to trust his words. Thoroughly confused by his passionate defense, she sharply demands to know why he ever suggested a devastating divorce. Crushed by massive guilt, he admits he selfishly sought to free her from a miserable life built entirely on his own past cowardice. Stunned by his incredibly selfless intention, Violetta softly apologizes for completely misunderstanding his noble heart. Regaining her fierce, unshakable confidence, she looks him dead in the eye and absolutely rejects the foolish divorce. Radiating absolute pride, she firmly declares that she willingly chose this marriage and absolutely refuses to play the tragic sacrifice. Igniting with unstoppable ambition, she vows to push the already bountiful land into an era of unprecedented, explosive prosperity. Discarding the toxic past entirely, she passionately proposes they forge a powerful, unbreakable future built on absolute mutual trust. Completely mesmerized by her breathtaking strength, the silent Marquis gazes in absolute awe at his incredible wife. A stunning, gentle smile breaks across his stoic face as he fiercely promises to fight for her absolute trust. Utterly captivated by his incredibly rare and radiant smile, Violetta feels a sudden, massive flutter in her awakened heart.